Chapter 12:22. Demon King 3 Knights was silent for a while, then said in a powerful voice, "Make them give up resisting." What? Yi Wanzong paled. He couldn't believe that his father, who looked down on the world, would say something like this. He said in shock, "Father, you..." The pair of tiger eyes that were glowing with a demonic red light made him swallow back the words he was about to say. Demon King 3 Knights said decisively, "Immediately pass down the order. Have all the armies give up on meaningless resistance and quickly gather together to form a great army. Even if our demonic path is completely eradicated, it shouldn't be because of passive resistance, but through heroic slaughter." Demon King 3 Knights' glowing red eyes suddenly stared outside the palace. His disdainful aura seemed to instantly return to his body. He pointed to the distant horizon outside the palace and shouted, "There is no resistance, in the words of our demonic path. In the eyes of our demonic path, the so-called Three Realms Great Army is nothing more than a flock of sheep with frightening numbers, while our demonic path army is the army of tigers and wolves. Order the 7 demon kings to immediately gather all the scattered resistance forces. I want them to condense into a sharp blade and fiercely stab into the enemy, like tigers entering a flock of sheep. Let them remember one thing. Don't get entangled with the Three Realms Great Army, and don't let the enemy's numbers affect the rhythm of the attack. We will gather our superior forces to attack our enemies and leave after that. Don't fall into a stalemate. We can't win with numbers. The demon realm is still our territory. We are not as familiar with the people of the Three Realms as we are. At worst, we will just let them chase after us. If we can win, we will fight fiercely. If we can't win, we will hide or quickly move, looking for the next opportunity to attack." Yi Qiankong's eyes lit up and he said respectfully, "Father is wise. As long as we display our advantages and gradually eat away at the enemy's strength, it's not certain who will win." Yu Qianqiu hasn't made a move yet. What is he planning? Demon King 3 Knights narrowed his eyes and said without any rhyme or reason. He then shook his head and said, "This isn't to make the two sides weaker. It's just to fight in a suitable way to show off the might of the demon Dao and preserve the strength of the demon realm. The true battle is between me and Yu Qianqiu. Everything else is just a prelude." As he spoke, he turned to his son and instructed, "Tell them that I'm contacting Lord Demonic God of the Immortal World. Tell everyone to stay alert." Yi Tiankong, who had received a clear answer from his father, immediately left the demon palace to pass on the message. The demon lord of 3 Knights, who had just calmed down, was once again thrown into disarray by what happened next. After asking about the 800 virgin blood sacrifices, the reply he received was that not even half of them had been found. Furthermore, with the flames of war everywhere, it was becoming more and more difficult to find them. As the demon lord of 3 Knights' orders were passed down, the remaining 7 demon kings of the demon realm quickly gathered an army of 900 million. It was indeed difficult to gather more people, as the demon realm was a land filled with the stench of blood. It was not a good place for people to multiply. The number of people here could not be compared to the 3 realms outside. However, it was also because of this reason that the army of 900 million that had survived countless massacres were the elites of the demon realm. As for the other small fries who could not even stand up to a single blow, the 7 demon kings simply let them fight on their own. They could not be bothered to spend energy on them, which was equivalent to decisively giving up on them. After all, it was troublesome to command an army with too many people. They only needed elites who could command them like they were their own arms and fingers to complete the demon lord of 3 Knights' strategic plan. The rallying power of the 7 demon kings working together had a huge influence in the demon realm. Furthermore, at the moment of life and death, everyone displayed their sincere spirit of unity, forsaking all the differences in the past. The 7 divine-level experts leading the 900 million demon realm elite army came and went like the wind. This immediately caused the situation of the demon realm's great war to become treacherous, and it also became even more bloody and intense. The army of over 100 million that the 3 realms had gathered had already been greatly depleted. Teams of over 100 million people were reorganized from 1,000 to over 900. The 7 demon kings led the demon realm's elites in a comeback, avoiding the heavy troops that the 3 realms army had gathered and prepared. They targeted individual teams, fighting against 100 million with 900 million elites. Almost all of them were massacred, and the casualties they had to pay were negligible. Not long after, the 7 demon kings had wiped out over 30 armies of the 3 realms, killing over 2 billion people. The 7 demon kings had also joined forces to kill 11 divine-level experts from the Netherworld Divine Manor. This proved that the demon lord of 3 Knights' battle strategy was effective, and it also caused the demon realm's declining situation to recover. After this, there was another classic battle in which the demon realm won against the demon realm's forces. The various forces that Wu Feng commanded surrounded and intercepted the elite army led by the 7 demon kings. However, due to the favorable timing and geographical location, they were unable to fight to their heart's content. They could only follow behind the 7 demon kings. When they were almost done, the 7 demon kings saw that Wu Feng was eager to win and immediately sent out 10 million troops to act as bait. As expected, the impatient Wu Feng led over 20 divine-level experts from the Netherworld Divine Manor to give chase. Meanwhile, the 7 demon kings led over 800 million elite troops to forcefully attack the 50 billion heavy troops that the 3 realms had gathered. That battle was truly a scene where bones were piled up like mountains and birds were sent flying. Blood flowed like rivers and even the sky was dyed red. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. To think that over 800 million elites had forcefully wiped out over 30 billion people. Meanwhile, the elites led by the 7 demon kings, including the 10 million people sent out as bait, had only lost close to 50 million people. The casualty ratio was as high as 1 to 600, and the difference between the two sides was frighteningly great. Of course, the most important reason was that Wu Feng and the other divine-level experts had all been lured away, giving the 7 demon kings the chance to kill without restraint. Just the number of people that the 7 demon kings had personally killed was already an inestimable number. After Wu Feng learned that they had fallen into a trap, he hurriedly led the various divine-level experts back to provide assistance. When the 7 demon kings learned that they had returned, they immediately led the remaining 800 million elite troops to retreat, running so far that not even their shadows could be seen. When Wu Feng returned and saw the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, he was terrified. Shock was one reason, but the most important reason was that he was worried that he would not be able to report to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu had trusted him so much, yet he had been utterly defeated. It could be said that he did not even dare to meet Yu Qianqiu, and even had thoughts of escaping. However, the demon realm had been completely sealed off, and there was nowhere for him to run even if he wanted to. Most importantly, Yu Qianqiu had been following behind him to protect him, so he could not avoid it even if he wanted to. He could only brace himself and ask for forgiveness from Yu Qianqiu. The thick stench of blood caused the people floating in the air to not dare to breathe freely. Looking at the tragic scene below, Yu Qianqiu frowned deeply. Even though he had been mentally prepared, he had not expected it to be so tragic. The ground was full of holes and potholes, and not even a slightly higher mountain could be seen. There were corpses everywhere and broken limbs piled up like a mountain of garbage. There was blood everywhere and there was not even a place to stand. Even with his cultivation, he could not see the end of the tragic scene. Apart from the person who had caused this scene and the people present, who else had seen such a tragic scene before? Wu Feng did not command properly. "Please punish me, torture envoy." Wu Feng stood behind Yu Qianqiu and asked for forgiveness with trepidation. Taking a deep breath of the air filled with the thick stench of blood, forcefully diluting the almost uncontrollable killing intent in his heart. The haze in Yu Qianqiu's eyes quickly disappeared. He turned to look at Wu Feng and sighed softly. Victory and defeat are common for soldiers. This time, it was just a moment of carelessness that caused you to fall into the evil plot of the demon realm. I have always been a person who does not use those I suspect and do not suspect those I use. I believe that you will be able to completely exterminate them in the end. I have faith in you. Thank you, torture envoy, for not killing me. Wu Feng will definitely do his best to avenge this humiliation. Wu Feng was truly moved this time. He didn't think that after causing the 3 realms to suffer such heavy losses, Yu Qianqiu would still have faith in him. This made him truly believe that Yu Qianqiu didn't want to harm him, but sincerely wanted to support him. Otherwise, he could have killed him in a dignified manner. However, Wu Feng was only moved for a short while. He immediately thought of rebuilding his prestige. He wanted to rely on the great art of slaying demons to become the ruler of the 3 realms, not because the slaying demon war had completely destroyed his hopes. So he needed to rebuild his strength. However, the 50 billion strong army had been utterly defeated by 900 million people. More than 30 billion people had died tragically. This was already enough to make everyone panic. They were all afraid of fighting the demon realm again. Their morale had fallen to rock bottom. How could it be so easy to regain their confidence? If it weren't for the fact that everyone had cut off their path of retreat, they would have scattered long ago. No one was willing to listen to Wu Feng's orders and risk their lives. In order to avoid a repeat of the same mistake, Wu Feng gathered the remaining 60 billion people together so that it would be easier to support each other. However, this immediately gave the 800 million elites led by the 7 demon kings even more space to engage in guerrilla warfare. They were practically constantly attacking and harassing the surroundings. Wu Feng, who had been waiting for an opportunity, had been patiently waiting, no longer daring to be rash. Only when he had identified the main forces of the 7 demon kings did he immediately lead the entire army to pursue and kill them. His focus was on the 7 demon kings. This immediately caused the 7 demon kings to suffer greatly. They couldn't give up on the 800 million elites and escape alone. As a result, they lost close to 100 million people. However, at the crucial moment, the 7 demon kings seized the opportunity, using their fearless courage to turn the disadvantageous situation into an advantageous one. They discovered that the morale of the army of the 3 realms was low, and that after some people gave chase in a perfunctory manner, they immediately ordered the majority of their troops to hide in the surroundings. Meanwhile, the 7 of them actually risked their lives, leading a portion of their troops to continue escaping as bait. They successfully attracted Wu Feng and the divine-level experts from the Netherworld Divine Manor. When Wu Feng and the group of experts gradually pulled away from the army behind them, the 300 million demonic elites lying in ambush immediately stabbed into the middle of the army from both sides like 2 sharp blades. This immediately threw the army of the 3 realms into chaos. In addition, their morale was low and they were not in the mood to fight. They also did not know how many people were launching a sneak attack on them. Therefore, they almost immediately scattered and fled for their lives first. In the end, a heavy military force of 60 billion people allowed the 300 million soldiers lying in ambush to charge into the core. After the 600 million demonic elites regrouped, they did not linger in battle. Like a sharp arrow, they charged out of the encirclement. When Wu Feng and the others heard that the army had been attacked again, they were all shocked. They thought that they had fallen into a trap again and had chased after the wrong target. Therefore, they turned around to provide reinforcements. By the time they arrived, the 600 million demonic elites would definitely not wait for them. They had already escaped. At the same time, they had also helped the 7 demon kings get rid of the danger of being pursued relentlessly. Chapter 12:23. This battle had a huge impact on the armies of the 3 realms. Actually, the number of people who had died on the spot was only about 3 billion or so. However, as they were driven away, the majority of the people had scattered. Many people did not die on the spot, but because their strength was scattered, they were eaten up by the demons. By the time Wu Feng had regrouped his people, he discovered that of the 100 billion people he had brought in, only 40 billion were left. This time he was completely flustered. He began to doubt whether he could lead the remaining people to eradicate the remnants of the devil world. Therefore, he once again asked for forgiveness from Yu Qianqiu. At the same time, he also wanted to beg Yu Qianqiu to personally take action. However, this time Yu Qianqiu did not give him a good look. He said bluntly, "Either you lead the army to victory, or you retreat halfway and bear the consequences of your failure. I won't support a useless piece of trash to rule over the 3 realms. Including the demon realm, it should be the 4 realms." Choosing a path of life and death, Wu Feng naturally chose to live. He could only continue to grit his teeth and prepare to decide a victor with the demon realm's army. However, the remaining 20 or so divine-level experts could not take it. They said that if he continued to play like this, they would definitely accompany him to the end. Therefore, these people pulled Wu Feng and thought of a crooked idea behind Yu Qianqiu's back. They led the remaining 40 billion soldiers to attack the demon palace, ignoring the interference of the elites led by the 7 demon kings. They wanted to force Yu Qianqiu to personally take action and have a decisive battle with Demon Lord 3 Knights. Yu Qianqiu was in the army, so how could he not understand the movements of the army? He knew very well but did not stop them. In reality, he had not interfered with any of the army's decisions. Most importantly, more than half of the 100 billion soldiers had died. He did not want to play with these bastards in fear anymore. Those who were not present would not be able to experience the feeling of seeing piles of bloody corpses every day. Just thinking about it made it hard for him to eat. Yu Qianqiu discovered that whenever he saw someone, he would imagine what it would be like if they died with their intestines spilling out and their limbs missing. It had become a physiological reaction, disgusting him to no end. He also wanted to change the scene to change his mood, or else he would definitely become a pervert. Those who were used to eating meat wanted to change their taste and eat vegetables. The army of the 3 realms began to force him to abdicate. Their intentions couldn't be more obvious. This was an open and above-board battle. The 7 great demon kings had no way to stop them. They could only lead the elites of the demon world to rush back to defend the demon palace. The demon palace, which was shrouded in red blood clouds, was heavily guarded by the elite armies of the demon world. After the 7 demon kings who had survived hundreds of battles in the demon palace reported the situation of the battle, they stood side by side in the main hall. Their gazes were all fixed on Demon King 3 Knights, who was sitting on the blood jade throne. They all knew that he was the key to the outcome of the demon world's battle of life and death. Demon Lord 3 Knights closed his eyes and sat in silence for a long time. The moment of the decisive battle was about to arrive, but the 800 virgins for the blood sacrifice were still nowhere in sight. This made him very angry, and he was prepared to reorganize the demon realm after the decisive battle. For the dignified demon realm to not be able to gather 800 virgins, it was simply a huge joke. Father, the armies of the 3 realms are already closing in on our demon palace. Yuanzong's voice rang out. He once again lost his composure and directly flew into the demon palace from outside the palace. It could be seen that the situation was very urgent. The 7 demon kings, however, stood there motionlessly. They didn't feel that there was anything strange about this at all. This was to be expected. Yuanzong saw that the 7 demon kings were indifferent and thought that they were able to keep their composure. He couldn't help but secretly admire them. At the same time, he secretly reminded himself that his cultivation was not up to par yet. At this moment, the sound of an intense battle came from afar. Demon Lord 3 Knights, who was sitting on the throne, twitched his face. He seemed to have made a very difficult decision. He slowly opened his eyes and stared at Yuanzong, saying in a low voice, "Call your 2 younger brothers over." Yuanzong was stunned for a moment. He responded with a yes, and quickly left. Demon Lord 3 Knights' figure flashed and directly flew out of the demon palace. He arrived at the spacious plaza outside the palace. The 7 demon kings looked at each other, then also stood outside the palace gate and looked at Demon Lord 3 Knights, not knowing what he was going to do. They saw Demon Lord 3 Knights standing in the center of the plaza with his eyes closed. He silently lowered his head and the scarlet cape on his shoulder gently swayed in the wind. "You seem to be praying." Suddenly he raised his head and looked up at the sky. He opened his arms and embraced the blood-red earth. 72 black balls of light the size of fists floated out from the storage bracelet on his wrist and began to revolve above his head. Even the 7 demon kings were seeing Demon Lord 3 Knights use this technique for the first time. They didn't know that this was something he had used up many precious materials to create to set up the demon god communication array. As Demon Lord 3 Knights waved his arms, the 72 black balls of light shot out in all directions and attached themselves to the 72 beast-shaped statues around the plaza. The ferocious sculptures that were facing all directions were instantly enveloped by a mass of black light. The black light that was attached to their bodies flickered and flickered incessantly. Those beast sculptures seemed to have gained intelligence in that instant, wanting to break free from the shackles of the foundation of the square. The entire square began to rumble and shake. The 7 demon kings looked at the various statues around them with astonished expressions. These statues were all masterpieces left behind by the demon god. They had always thought that they were just decorations to show off the grandeur of the demon palace. They didn't expect there to be more to them. Wenglong. Wenglong. Amidst the rumbling, the 72 beast statues wrapped in black light began to slowly turn around. Gradually they turned to face Demon Lord 3 Knights in the center of the plaza. Each of them opened their mouths and opened their fangs. Although there were only 72 of them, their grandeur was like that of 10,000 beasts. When the rumbling disappeared, the 72 beast statues also stopped moving. Only the black light on their bodies flickered and flickered. The plaza returned to its tranquility. Demon Lord 3 Knights slowly lowered his arms and stared coldly into the distance. He could hear the sounds of an intense battle coming from afar. Yuanzong brought Yi Yuan and Yi Tuobian to the periphery of the plaza. Their expressions were also somewhat astonished. They didn't think that the 72 beast statues standing at the periphery of the Demon Palace Plaza would be so mysterious. Seeing that the commotion in the plaza had stopped, Yuanzong greeted his 2 younger brothers and floated in front of Demon Lord 3 Knights to pay his respects. Demon Monarch 3 Knights swept his gaze over the 3 brothers and said indifferently, "The demon world created by Lord Demon God is currently facing a great calamity. Your father is useless and does not have the ability to resolve this calamity, so I can only shamelessly ask Lord Demon God of the God world. However, the activation of the Demon God's communication array requires a devout blood sacrifice in order to communicate with the Demon God of the God realm. It's a pity that the 800 virgins required for the blood sacrifice have yet to be gathered. I have no choice but to think of another method." He paused here. The 3 brothers looked at each other with confusion in their eyes. They didn't know why Demon Lord Three Knights had suddenly called them over to say these words. Their eyes seemed to be saying, "Even Father can't do anything about it, how can the three of us solve it?" The 7 demon kings at the entrance of the demon palace also felt that it was a bit strange. They didn't know what Demon Lord Three Knights' intention was for saying these words to the 3 brothers. Demon Lord Three Knights slowly closed his eyes and said word by word, "Blood sacrifice, other than using the blood of 800 pure virgins to express devout devotion, there is an even better method, and that is to use the direct bloodline of the demon god for the blood sacrifice. Now that things have come to this, I wonder which of you 3 brothers is willing to sacrifice your life for the great cause of the demon path left behind by your ancestors?" When these words were said, the expressions of the 7 demon kings became solemn. It turned out that the demon lord had called his 3 sons over to sacrifice his own son to protect the demon path. The 3 brothers' faces all became deathly pale. They were all terrified. They didn't think that disaster would fall from the sky and they didn't know what to do. After waiting for a while and seeing that no one answered, Demon Lord Three Knights' eyes suddenly opened. He stared at the 3 of them and roared, "While the descendants of the demon god enjoy the glory of their ancestors, they also have to bear the corresponding responsibility. Since none of you are willing to sacrifice yourselves, then let me make the choice for you." After all, the one to be sacrificed was his own son. Halfway through his harsh words, his tone became slightly gentler. "There is an order of seniority. With the eldest brother here, there is no reason for the younger brother to be sacrificed." Hearing this, Yi Wanzong froze on the spot, completely dumbfounded. The 2nd and 3rd brothers secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and weakly looked towards their eldest brother. Unexpectedly, Demon Lord Three Knights changed the topic and continued, "However, the eldest brother is the designated successor of the Demon Lord. He has his responsibility, so 2nd brother Yu Yuan, I'll choose you." With a single sentence, the outcome of the matter was decided. Yi Wanzong's heart, which had almost stopped beating, began to gradually become lively again. The repeated experiences of life and death caused his face to become flushed as if he was drunk. For a moment he was at a loss and the feeling was indescribable. However, 2nd brother Yi Yuan's face turned deathly pale. He didn't think that his damnable sin was actually because he was the 2nd brother. 3rd brother Yi Tuobian lowered his head and secretly rejoiced that he was the 3rd brother. This was the first time he realized that being the 2nd brother was actually quite good. Once he made his decision, Demon Lord Three Knights no longer hesitated. Seeing the sounds of battle coming closer and closer, he decisively ordered, 7 demon kings, listen to my command. Have everyone retreat. There is no need to make unnecessary sacrifices. I'll leave the eldest and 2nd brothers to you to protect. Quickly take the 2 brothers and leave this place. I will handle the rest." "Yes." 3 of the 7 great demon kings immediately flew into the distance, while the remaining 4 flashed to the side of Big Brother and 2nd brother, asking the 2 of them to follow them. Before the 2 brothers left, they did not forget to ask their father and 2nd brother to take care. 2nd brother Yi Yuan stood there dumbfounded. How could he listen to these polite words? Once they left, Demon Lord Three Knights' face was filled with grief and indignation. There was not even a word of farewell between father and son. He raised his hand and clawed at Yi Yuan's head. A black baleful aura quickly surged from his palm, instantly enveloping Yi Yuan. A shrill scream rang out from his palm. Chapter 12:24. Even though the pain was indescribable, Yi Yuan did not resist at all. Perhaps he knew that resistance was useless. The fiendish aura corroded his bones. His face twisted and his flesh and bones quickly melted. His entire body became a bloody paste. Not long after the screams disappeared, Yi Yuan was completely refined, turning into a large red ball of blood. Demon Lord Three Knight held the flashing red ball of blood in one hand. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, and tears seeped out of his eyes. No one had ever seen this influential figure of the 3 realms cry. He suddenly raised the blood ball in his hand with one hand, and the scarlet cloak behind him immediately fluttered violently, as if it was about to flap its wings and fly away. The blood ball instantly divided into 72 balls of red light, shooting in all directions and drilling into the mouths of the 72 beast heads. The 72 fanged mouths suddenly swallowed and spat out blood-red light, as if they had come to life. In the distance, a large group of figures rapidly flew through the air. They were all demonic elites that had been ordered to retreat. Demon Lord Three Knight, who was surrounded by the 72 beast statues, attracted everyone's attention, but they only took a quick glance before flying away. The army led by Wu Feng did not pursue. The majestic demon palace under the blood clouds could already be faintly seen. They did not have the courage to face Demon Lord Three Knight head-on. Otherwise, with a group of god-level experts working together, they would have long since broken through the defenses of the demonic elites. Countless gazes in the army of the three realms looked nervously at the demon palace in the distance. That demon palace was like a stabilizing force, making everyone feel an inexplicable pressure. They had just been fighting to the death, but now that the demonic elites had retreated, everything became silent. No one dared to act rashly. Yu Qianqiu floated in the air with his arms crossed, narrowing his eyes as he stared at the majestic demon palace on the peak of a distant mountain. Wu Feng flew over from above the army and stopped in front of him. He bowed and said, "Torture Envoy. The demonic army retreated very strangely just now, and Demon Lord Three Knight's lair is right in front of us. We are truly not a match for Demon Lord Three Knight. I'm afraid the Torture Envoy will have to personally deal with him." He had to force himself to say these words. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a majestic aura pressing down on him from behind. Turning around, he saw roiling demonic chi soaring into the sky from the Devil Palace, stirring up the blood-red clouds in the sky and surging over like a tidal wave. Suddenly, another ray of green light soared into the sky, instantly igniting the devilish clouds that filled the sky. The strange oily green fire clouds roiled endlessly in the sky, dyeing the world green. An uproar came from the army below. Many of them had seen Demon Monarch Three Knight's demonic flames before. At this moment, the Three Knights' Demon Lord's voice reverberated through the world. "Yu Qianqiu. This monarch has been waiting for a long time." As soon as he finished speaking, the large balls of demonic flames in the sky immediately fell, and the densely packed army of the three realms immediately fell into chaos. Not long after, screams rang out everywhere, and those who could escape were all running for their lives. Wu Feng was greatly alarmed. As he dodged the falling demon flames, he waved the wind god staff in his hand and shouted sternly, "Steady! Hold on!" However, at this time all orders were false. Everyone placed escaping as their top priority, and even Wu Feng could not suppress the chaos. The remaining 22 deities from the Netherworld God Office saw the chaos and hurried over to ask what they should do. Wang Qing protected Madame Blackpool and Wu Xiong as they retreated. They all felt that at this point, it was safest to stay close to Yu Qianqiu. The large balls of green flames whooshed past Yu Qianqiu. Although he floated in the air without moving, the demonic flames automatically avoided him. Yu Qianqiu expressionlessly looked at the retreating crowd, then waved his hand in the direction of the demon palace and said indifferently, "Go." The people who had gathered over looked at each other, not knowing what he meant. Wu Feng carefully asked, "Disciplinary envoy, what do you mean? You don't understand?" Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, "I want you all to work together to kill Demon Monarch Three Knights." Everyone's expression changed. They knew that even if they worked together, they would not be a match for Demon Monarch Three Knights. What was the difference between sending them to their deaths? Wu Feng looked around and laughed dryly. "With our abilities, we are not a match for Old Thief Three Knights. Fortunately, we have the disciplinary envoy." Yu Qianqiu did not let him finish and interrupted him. "With me here, you all have a chance to survive against Three Knights. If you don't kill Three Knights, I will kill you all. I guarantee that none of you will escape." As soon as he said this, the people around him felt like they had been struck by lightning. They were all speechless. If they had known this would happen, they would have continued to fight the Demon Dao army. Madame Blackpool's face was filled with fear, and Wu Xiong's face was red. If he did not know that he was not a match for Yu Qianqiu, he would have fought him to the death. Wang Qing, who had always listened to his father's orders, slowly raised the six-dragon snow-blue sword and pointed it at Yu Qianqiu. He spoke for the first time. The voice under the silver mask sounded. "Yu Qianqiu, what do you mean by doing this?" His voice was filled with uncontrollable anger. "Nothing." Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and said, "However, if you don't put down your sword, don't blame me for being impolite. You want to burn the bridge after crossing the river?" Wang Qing was truly angry, but he was pulled back by Wu Feng. Wu Feng squeezed out a smile at Yu Qianqiu. "Disciplinary envoy. If you don't act, we really are not a match for Demon Monarch Three Knights. With our cultivation, going up is no different from sending us to our deaths." "Who said I won't act?" Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and turned into a stream of light, flying toward the demon palace. Everyone looked at each other. After a short discussion, they didn't have the guts to run away. They could only bite the bullet and follow. None of them looked good. As soon as he flew above the demon palace, Yu Qianqiu's pupils shrank. The strange scene of the 72 beast statues glowing with black light and spitting out red light aroused his vigilance. Furthermore, Demon Monarch 3 Knights was standing fearlessly in the center of the square, waiting for him. He didn't dare to act rashly. His gaze constantly swept around, trying to see if there were any clues. It was best if he didn't fall for the other's trick. Demon Monarch 3 Knights saw that the demonic flames from the sky had no effect on Yu Qianqiu. Since the army of the three realms had already scattered in fear, he couldn't be bothered to waste his energy. With a wave of his hand, the green demonic flames that filled the sky immediately disappeared. Even the blood clouds that filled the sky quickly disappeared. The sky above the demon palace was unexpectedly clear for thousands of miles. At this time Wu Feng and the others had also arrived. However, they all stood behind Yu Qianqiu, prepared to escape at any time. No one was willing to fight against Demon Monarch 3 Knights. Demon Monarch 3 Knights. Today is the day of your death. Yu Qianqiu suddenly laughed coldly. A golden light flashed in the air, and the skyscraping arrow circled around his body. At the same time he was secretly observing his surroundings. This situation made him feel that something was wrong. Is that so? I want to see whose death it will be. Demon Monarch 3 Knights snorted and suddenly raised his arms to the sky. A majestic aura suddenly exploded from the mountain peak, causing the entire mountain peak to violently tremble. The 72 beast eagles roared in unison as they spat out a beam of interweaving black and red light. The 72 beams of light quickly formed a pentagonal pattern in the center of the plaza, drowning Demon King 3 Knights in it. With such a strange scene, let alone Wu Feng and the others, even Yu Qianqiu felt that something was wrong. Yu Qianqiu no longer hesitated. He didn't care whether there was a conspiracy or not. He would fight first and then think later. The skyscraping arrow rumbled, carrying the power of wind and lightning as it shot towards Demon Monarch 3 Knights in the center of the square. Bang! A pentagonal pillar of light shot into the sky, directly knocking away the skyscraping arrow. The powerful impact was unbelievably strong, causing the surrounding air to violently vibrate. Even Yu Qianqiu's figure swayed in the air, while the others were also sent staggering by the powerful air currents. Yu Qianqiu recalled the divine arrow and looked up in shock. He saw that the other end of the pillar of light had already pierced through the sky, shooting towards an unknown location. By the time the others stabilized themselves, they had already been sent 1,000 meters away. Their clothes were in a mess, but they were glad that they hadn't been directly hit by the pillar of light. Otherwise, even if they didn't die, they wouldn't be any better off. The pillar of light remained in the sky for a long time without dissipating. No one knew what Demon Monarch 3 Knights was doing. Yu Qianqiu was about to attack again when he suddenly saw the pillar of light disappear. Demon Monarch 3 Knights revealed an extremely excited expression as he stared at the sky and knelt down on one knee, his expression incomparably pious. An ancient and terrifying aura instantly descended like the might of heaven, filling the sky and earth. Yu Qianqiu felt that something was wrong. He suddenly looked up and discovered that it was just as he had expected. A pair of dreamy and illusory demonic eyes had appeared in the 9 heavens, coldly and emotionlessly looking down on all living beings. This wasn't the first time he had seen this pair of demon eyes, so he couldn't be more familiar with them. Suddenly, a crack appeared between the eyebrows of the 2 eyes. Dense lightning flashed within, but there was no sound of thunder or lightning. A blurry figure slowly floated out of the lightning, as if stepping on lightning to walk out of the void. That aura was extremely shocking. The lightning disappeared and the crack in space instantly healed. The figure quietly floated between the eyebrows of the giant demon eyes. *CK. It can't be that demon god knight directly descended from the god realm to the demon realm, right? Yu Qianqiu glanced at the kneeling Demon Monarch 3 Knights, then raised his head to look at the sky. The muscles on his face fiercely twitched. In the blink of an eye, the silhouette descended upon the demon palace at the speed of light. The silhouette was illusory like a dream, and it was impossible to see the true appearance of the newcomer. However, he could vaguely sense that the newcomer was wrapped in a large black waistcoat. At first, Yu Qianqiu thought that it was because he was too far away, but now he realized that it was indeed a figure. It didn't seem like a real person. Looking at the sky again, the pair of giant demon eyes was still there. Yu Qianqiu could clearly feel that the pair of eyes was staring at him, but then it silently disappeared into the void. Chapter 12:25. Just like that, Yu Qianqiu guessed that the illusory figure in front of him was not the demon god himself, and immediately felt much more at ease. However, what was certain was that this illusory figure that had descended from the sky was definitely related to the demon god. 1,000 meters away, Wu Feng and the others all revealed expressions of shock and uncertainty, not knowing what was going on. At this moment, the illusory figure suddenly shot towards the kneeling Demon King Three Knights. The pious Demon King Three Knights' body trembled, as if he had instantly fused with the illusory figure. He suddenly raised his head, and as if he had lost gravity, he slowly floated up with his eyes tightly closed, spreading out his arms as he slowly rose up. A boundless and terrifying aura began to radiate from his body, sweeping through the heavens and earth. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, creating a thunderstorm out of nowhere, causing all living beings on the vast earth to feel an immense pressure. The heavens and earth seemed to be cheering for the Demon King Three Knights. Yu Qianqiu knew that things were not good. The demon god had probably given the Demon King Three Knights something to rely on. Suddenly, a ruthless expression flashed across his face, and he decided to stop here. The divine arrow in his hand shot out with a boom, intending to kill the Demon King Three Knights in one blow. Although the Demon Lord of Three Knights had his eyes closed and his back was facing him, at the crucial moment, he decisively turned his hand and grabbed. 5 swirling black lights emanated from his 5 fingers and managed to restrain the sharp arrowhead, firmly holding it in place and preventing it from moving. Yu Qianqiu immediately sensed the opponent's mountainous cultivation through the divine arrow, and couldn't help but be shocked. He had fought with the Demon King Three Knights before, and knew that it was impossible for the Demon King Three Knights to have such a high cultivation. The only possibility was that he had something to do with the demon god. Seeing that the divine arrow had actually been controlled by the opponent, Yu Qianqiu was about to fight for it when the Demon King Three Knights suddenly turned around and opened his eyes. His terrifying red eyes flashed with an incomparably demonic red light, instantly stunning everyone's mind. Yu Qianqiu felt his vision blur, and all he could see was a boundless sea of blood. Suddenly, countless flowers of blood blossomed on the surface of the sea, and countless blood vines shot out of the sea of blood, binding him tightly and making him unable to move. This scene instantly made him think of the scene when he had been trapped by Yan Zhuixing's demonic eye. It was exactly the same as now, but the power was not on the same level. He was not the only one. Even Wu Feng's family, as well as the 20 god-level experts of the Netherworld Divine Manor, fell into a daze the moment the Three Knights' demon eyes opened. In other words, the opponent had not even made a move. With just a glance, he had subdued everyone. Was Yan Zhuixing. But this, the demon Tian, was that it had not yet the god Tian, and Yu Yen Xing Qian. Yen Heaven Tian, that the one Yen Tian, Yen Shin of the god, wherever the golden light shone, the blood sea was annihilated. Countless blood vines that were binding Yu Qianqiu crumbled and disappeared. Yu Qianqiu, who was floating in the air, shook his head. His eyes regained their clarity and he shouted, "Break!" Bang! The divine arrow exploded into thousands of rays of golden light. The black light that had broken through the seal scattered in all directions and circled around him. At the same time, Yu Qianqiu released a ball of Samadhi true fire to protect his body. He pointed at the opponent and said sternly, "You are not San Yi." Demon Monarch Three Knights put down his hand, and the demonic red light in his eyes disappeared. His aura of looking down on the world was completely revealed, far surpassing the aura of conquering the world from Three Knights. It was as if he was the master of this world. San Yi looked at him coldly and said, "So the star bead has such a use. Does the Samadhi true fire also come from the star bead?" Although the voice was still San Yi's, the tone was completely different. Yu Qianqiu quickly looked behind him. From the expressions of Wu Feng and the others, he could see that they had been controlled by the demon eye. His eyes narrowed as he turned back and shouted, "You are Demon God Yi. To be able to make me take action time and again, you can be considered a capable person. I can give you a chance." Demon Monarch Three Knights said indifferently, "Submit to my demonic path and I can spare your life." These words were undoubtedly admitting his identity. Facing such a terrifying person like the demon god who was threatening him, it would be a lie if Yu Qianqiu said he was not afraid. His expression twitched as he gritted his teeth and said, "You are the #1 expert in the god realm. You actually went against the rules of the god realm and came to the lower realm. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the Tao?" He was forcing himself to use the Tao to threaten the other party. Punishment? If there was someone who dared to punish me, he would have done so long ago. There would be no need to wait until today. Demon Monarch Three Knights' tone revealed a trace of disdain as he said, "The so-called rules, if the person who made them cannot abide by them, how can others abide by them? That dragon that is running around in the lower realm, doesn't it come from the god realm?" The dragon that the other party was referring to, Yu Qianqiu naturally understood that it was Hong Tai Long. But what made Yu Qianqiu feel strange was that with the demon god's abilities, it shouldn't be difficult for him to subdue him. Why did he waste his breath to persuade him to surrender? It didn't make sense. His instincts told him that there must be some inside story that he did not know about. He calmed down in a second. It was good that the other party was not in a hurry to kill him. Otherwise he would have nowhere to run. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Demon God. You are the dignified #1 expert in the God realm, but you came all the way from the God realm to attack a small figure like me. Isn't that beneath your status?" Demon Monarch 3 Knights said without any emotions, "You think too highly of yourself. If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as snapping a finger. I don't even need to use my main body to come to the lower realm. This is just a clone of my main body. I can create millions of clones like this at any time. As long as you are willing to surrender to me, you will enjoy endless benefits." Yu Qianqiu was secretly shocked. He didn't expect that a clone of the other party would be so much stronger than his cultivation of a late great god. The power of the main body could be imagined. But how could the famous demon god be so patient? Why did the other party insist on him surrendering to him? There should be many experts in the god realm that were stronger than him. There must be something fishy going on here. Could it be that he was bluffing? In reality, this clone could only scare people? Yu Qianqiu's eyes turned and he suddenly shouted, F***CKU. 10,000 divine swords poured down like a torrential rain, shooting toward Devil Monarch 3 Knights. Demon Monarch 3 Knights' gaze suddenly became cold. He didn't expect the other party to know his identity and still dare to take the initiative to attack. The other party's guts were boundless. He teleported and disappeared on the spot. Before Yu Qianqiu could react, his vision blurred. He felt an intense pain in his abdomen. His body felt like it was about to explode. His eyeballs almost popped out. The true Samadhi fire protecting his body dissipated. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He didn't even see how the other party attacked. He fell to the ground like a meteor. With a boom, he smashed a deep pit in the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. Only then did Demon Monarch 3 Knights' figure appear in the air. It was easy to imagine how fast he was. With a backhand slap behind him, the 10,000 divine swords that had just been shot out were immediately thrown into a mess and stabbed into the square outside the demon palace. At this moment, he stared coldly at the person struggling in the deep pit. If he didn't have any misgivings, he would have crushed Yu Qianqiu into dust. Even so, Yu Qianqiu's injuries weren't light. He struggled in the deep pit for a long time but couldn't get up. He spat out mouthfuls of blood, giving people the feeling that he was not far from death. "You have guts. You actually dare to attack me." Demon Monarch 3 Knights looked down and said coldly, "Submit to me and I'll spare your life." Damn it. Misjudgment. Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Finally he could breathe normally again. The moment he opened his mouth he cursed, "I'll submit to your mother." As he cursed he disappeared. Of course he knew the principle of running if he couldn't win. Demon King 3 Knights narrowed his eyes. He was not at all surprised by this. He turned back to look at the 10,000 swords stabbed into the ground. He stretched out 2 fingers and pressed them against his forehead. Suddenly, black light shone from his body, and all the light gathered at his forehead. A blood-red cloud pattern floated between his eyebrows. At this moment, Demon Monarch 3 Knights' body trembled. He looked at his hands and touched the blood-red cloud pattern on his forehead. His face was filled with surprise. He was the real Demon Monarch 3 Knights now. Just now he was protected by the demon god's clone. Although he knew what had happened, he couldn't control his body. He originally thought that after the crisis was resolved, the demon god's avatar would leave, but what he didn't expect was that the demon god actually sealed this avatar in his body so that he could use it at any time at a critical moment. How could he not be happy? Demon Monarch 3 Knights looked around. When he saw the 20 people being controlled, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. Then he charged over and extracted their natal primordial spirits to control them. In Utopia's misty palace, a bloody figure appeared in the sky and fell to the ground like a dead pig. Yu Qianqiu struggled a few times but couldn't get up. His body felt like it was falling apart. He could only lie on the ground and weakly shout, "Someone save me." However, it seemed like only he could hear his voice. Coincidentally, Hong Tai Long was bored out of his mind and came out for a stroll with his hands behind his back. When he saw a bloody person on the ground, he walked over and shook his head as he muttered, "Who is so unlucky to be bullied by that brat to this extent and even be captured?" When he got closer, he raised his leg and kicked the person, saying, "He's not dead, right? Hong Tai Long. I'm kicking your ancestor." "It's me." Yu Qianqiu cursed as he lay on the ground. Hong Tai Long's ears pricked up. Suddenly he exclaimed and reacted. He immediately squatted down and flipped the person over. When he saw that it really was Yu Qianqiu, he exclaimed in shock, "Yu Qianqiu, who injured you like this?" Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and said, "Be gentler. It hurts." Chapter 12:26. With Hong Tailong's loud roar, a large group of people immediately rushed out of the palace. When they saw that he was injured to such a state, they were all shocked. His harem beauties even burst into tears. Everyone hurriedly carried him in. After placing him on the bed, 7 or 8 hands touched him, all checking his injuries. Yu Qianqiu lay there weakly and smiled bitterly. "I'm fine. These are just minor injuries. I can still endure." He spoke casually, but the faces of the 7 or 8 people who checked his injuries instantly turned pale. They discovered that his internal organs were all severely injured. It could be said that his liver and intestines were all broken. His tendons, meridians and bones were all broken. These people were frightened badly. They couldn't imagine how he hadn't died yet, that he was still alive. "How are his injuries?" Farong asked anxiously. On the bed, Yu Qianqiu was surrounded by people. She could not squeeze in. Hong Tailong looked around with a grave expression and said, "Change the bloody clothes on him first. We will discuss how to treat him." Immediately, a few hands tried to remove Yu Qianqiu's clothes. Yu Qianqiu widened his eyes and shouted with all his might, "Don't." Everyone looked at him in confusion. Yu Qianqiu panted slightly. He felt the golden pearl in his dantian continuously sending essence qi to his limbs and bones. The pain all over his body was alleviated, and his body was gradually recovering. He knew that with this life-saving treasure he would not die. He let out a breath and said, "This outfit is pretty good. I still need to wear this to find my master. I'm afraid I won't be able to invite him if I'm all clean. It's better to be pitiful." Everyone was speechless. He was already injured to this extent, yet he was still thinking of crooked ideas. Beauty of 100 Charms, who was hugging his head, said anxiously, "Then let's treat your injuries first." "I'm fine." Yu Qianqiu's voice regained some vigor. He said, "I know my own body best. No matter how serious my injuries are, I'm not afraid. I guarantee that in less than a month I will still be alive and kicking. Don't look at me like that. I'm not joking. Do you think I'm not afraid of death?" Hearing how confident he sounded, everyone was skeptical. Hong Tailong asked with a grave expression once again, "Who beat you up to this state?" Yu Qianqiu was furious when he heard that. He rolled his eyes and said, "Who else could it be? Apart from my master, no one in the 3 realms is a match for me. That bastard god-fiend didn't abide by the rules. He, the #1 expert of the divine world, actually dared to go against this daddy. Bastard. My heaven and earth splitting arrow was also stolen by him. Demon god." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. For some of them, this was the first time they knew that emotion was actually the #1 expert in the immortal realm. Hong Tailong nodded and said, "For you to be able to escape with your life from the fiend god's hands, it's also considered good fortune. But, even if we can invite your master probably isn't the fiend god's match either. It shouldn't be a problem." An ugly smile appeared on Yu Qianqiu's bloodied face as he said, "It's not the fiend god himself, but a wisp of the fiend god's avatar that descended to the lower realm. I reckon that old fellow can deal with it. You guys don't have to worry about me. I'll rest for a day, and after I recover my strength, I'll go to the barrier of the heavens to look for the old fellow." Although he said that, the group of people still refused to leave. From time to time they would check on his injuries. When they realized that he was really recovering at a rapid pace, they were both surprised and relieved. The next day, when Yu Qianqiu woke up in a daze, he could already move his limbs, but he still couldn't get off the bed. However, he couldn't wait to take revenge. Actually, there was a reason. He was afraid that his injuries would recover too quickly, and he wouldn't be able to fool by Changchun to help him snatch back the divine arrow. Therefore, Xinyu, who was in charge of transportation, was called over again. Hong Tailong had to work a little harder as he carried Yu Qianqiu on his back. After greeting everyone, the 3 of them disappeared from Ethereal Palace. Once they reached the Netherworld River, Xinyu knew what to do without any instructions. He obediently jumped into the Netherworld River and revealed his original form. He opened his huge clamshell, carried the 2 of them, and rapidly swam against the current. Once they stepped into the barrier of the heavens, Hong Tailong carried Yu Qianqiu and jumped ashore. Then Xinyu was sent back to Utopia. Under Yu Qianzhou's signal, Hong Tailong immediately carried him and flew back to the old place. Under the huge moon, Hong Tailong carried Yu Qianzhou on his back as he stood in front of the Hengduan mountain cliff in a daze. In the barrier of the heavens ahead, Bai Changchun, who was dressed in a green robe, was still floating there. However, there were 7 identical Bai Changchun standing there with their eyes closed. In the silence, there were many golden arcs of light going in and out of the 7 bodies, adding a sense of mystery to the pitch-black barrier of the heavens. 3 incarnations are early-stage ancient gods, 6 incarnations are mid-stage ancient gods. Doesn't that mean that 7 incarnations have already stepped into the doorstep of late-stage ancient gods, and 2 more incarnations will reach the peak of late-stage ancient gods? Once all 10 incarnations are gathered, he will reach the great perfection realm. Hong Tailong had a look of disbelief on his face as he muttered to himself, "Is this for real? At this rate, the gods of the divine world have all lived in vain. This is way too fast." Yu Qianzhou was lying on Hong Tailong's back, but his eyes were filled with little stars. He chuckled and said, "It's good that it's fast, it's good that it's fast. When the time comes, the old man will have no opponents and will definitely look for Mo-Shen to fight one-on-one. Then, we can send the old man to the divine world from the netherworld divine palace. If the old man kills Mo-Shen, then I will be living a happy life." Unimaginable. Hong Tailong shook his head. Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "When is your master coming out? Don't tell me we have to keep waiting here?" Yu Qianzhou looked around and asked curiously, "Where are the 3 fellows guarding this place?" Hong Tailong said angrily, "You're asking me, but who should I ask? Put me down. Just let me lie on the ground." Yu Qianzhou patted his shoulder, and Hong Tailong obeyed and placed him on the ground. Yu Qianzhou then casually pulled out a blanket and even took 2 backrests and threw them on the ground. He said, "Help me lay them down." The corner of Hong Tailong's mouth twitched. "Are you really planning to wait here for a long time?" Although he said that, he still helped him make the bed and placed him on the blanket. Yu Qianzhou adjusted his posture and leaned comfortably on the back of the blanket. He looked at the huge moon in the sky and then at the surroundings. He frowned and said, "It's just that the environment is a little bad, but I'll make do with it." He turned back and said, "Use your identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy to find out some information. I'll wait here for my master to come out. Don't worry about my safety. Although I can't make a move now, I can still hide in Utopia at any time." "Damn you, I'm worried about my safety. We've done so many wicked things here and you've been hiding in the dark. I've always been the one showing up in the open. If the matter of the tomb being robbed is exposed, I'll be the first person they suspect. Of course you don't have to be afraid." Hong Tailong snorted and turned into a stream of light. Yu Qianzhou was startled. However, he reckoned that Hong Tailong wouldn't be in any danger with his identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy. He then turned over and lay on his side. He looked at Bai Changchun in the barrier of heavens. After a long time he actually felt drowsy. More than 10 days later, Hong Tailong hurriedly returned. Yu Qianzhou, who was asleep, sat up abruptly when he heard the commotion. He shouted, "Who is it?" With his current cultivation he could be considered an expert in the mausoleum of the god of sin. Someone like Hong Tailong couldn't escape his ears at all. "It's me," Hong Tailong greeted. Suddenly he was startled. He sized him up and said, "You moved so quickly. How did your injuries heal so quickly?" "Don't mention it." Yu Qianzhou heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Bai Changchun in the barrier of heavens and waved his hand helplessly. "The old man hasn't come out yet. If I wait any longer, I'm afraid I won't be able to get the old man to help when my injuries are fully healed." Hong Tailong laughed heartily. This was the first time he saw someone complaining about his injuries recovering too quickly. He then sat cross-legged on the mattress. He tilted his head and looked at the person in the barrier of heavens. He clicked his tongue and said, "Your master is amazing. It turns out that before we came he had already come out once and did something big." "What do you mean?" Yu Qianzhou became spirited. He moved his butt closer to Hong Tailong. "Do you still remember the wind god I told you about last time?" Hong Tailong shook his head and exclaimed, "The left and right envoys guarding the wind god's tomb are Tian Feng and Di Feng. I asked a few people to verify and found out that these 2 people's cultivation had reached the intermediate ancient god realm. In the end, when your master came out, he didn't look for anyone but went straight for them. 2 intermediate ancient god realm experts working together. In the end they were killed by your master. Too awesome. Those 2 fellas are the top experts in the mausoleum of the god of sin. Now, no one in the entire mausoleum of the god of sin is a match for your master. Yu Qianshou's eyes lit up. He tilted his head and looked at the barrier of heavens. In other words, the old man's cultivation has really reached the ancient god realm? Of course. Hong Tailong elbowed him and snickered, "Are you interested in going to the wind god's tomb? I've already found out the location. If we refine the wind god's cultivation into a profound weapon, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with the demonic god's clone." Obviously, this guy had done his preparation work in advance. Yu Qianshou nodded excitedly at first but then said hesitantly, "That bastard demonic god doesn't follow the rules. Even if we refine the wind god's cultivation into a profound weapon and bring it there, if we win against the demonic god's clone, we will immediately attract the demonic god's revenge. At that time we won't be able to handle it." Hong Tailong felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. He asked, "Then what should we do?" "Let's wait a little longer. If we can bring my master along, our chances of winning will be higher." Yu Qianshou sighed as he looked at the 7 by Changchun in the distance. Hong Tailong thought about it and agreed. Thus, the two of them laid down on one side of the blanket and waited. In the end, they waited for more than a month. Most of the time they were looking at the big moon in the sky or taking turns to sleep. In the end, Yu Qianshou realized that his injuries had healed. It was impossible for him to wait for the Bai Changchun to come out and gain sympathy. He finally lost his patience. On this day he flipped over and stood up. He grabbed the blanket and tossed the snoring Hong Tailong off the bed. He kept his things and waved his hand at the glaring Hong Tailong. "We can't keep waiting like this. Let's go and take a look at the wind god's tomb first. We'll talk after we return." Chapter 12:27. Hong Tailong loved to hear this. He quickly got up and excitedly rubbed his fists and said, "You should have done this long ago." The two fellows, whose eyes had turned green from looking at the moon every day, almost had the urge to howl at the moon. After getting up, they subconsciously shook their heads together to shake the shadow of the moon out of their minds. Their movements were so coordinated that they patted their butts and slipped away together. "Shouldn't you change your tattered clothes? Anyway, you can no longer win your master's sympathy. There's no need to pretend to be pitiful, right? So, it takes 3 years to get new, 3 years to get old, and another 3 years to sew and mend. I'm used to being thrifty. Forget it. I can't be too shabby when I'm outside. It doesn't matter if I lose my face. Anyway, no one knows me. The key is to lose the face of the Dragon Clan's emissary. I'm sorry to the coiling dragon god. What does it have to do with my Dragon Clan? Don't change it for the rest of your life if you have the guts. I've always been respectful to the dead. I've long admired Senior Wind God's great name. I'm going there with the mentality of a pilgrimage. It's too sloppy. I'd better change it. The dead are the most important. I can't be disrespectful to the dead. Don't give me that. You say one thing but think another. You've done all the good things and all the bad things. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You're afraid that people will see that you're a thief and feel guilty, right? Hong Tailong, what kind of good person do you think you are? You've already done your homework and you're still inciting me to do bad things. Why are you pretending to be a gentleman now? Damn it. If you make me angry, I'll make you stay here and guard the tomb for the rest of your life. What are you looking at? Try being long-winded again. I can't beat the demon god, but can't I beat you? Oh, ruthless villain, you're ruthless. Along the way, according to Hong Tailong, the wind god was the person with the highest cultivation in the divine mausoleum after his death. The place where he was buried was also the highest place in the divine mausoleum. The so-called highest place was the place closest to the moon in the sky. It was the highest mountain in the mausoleum of the god of sin. When the two of them arrived at the highest mountain range, they realized that the wind god's tomb wasn't the only one here. There were tombs made of blood jade and red crystals all over the mountains. Under the gorgeous moonlight, the tombs glowed with a dark red light. From afar, the entire mountain range looked like a monster with eyes all over its body. At the highest peak there was a tomb that was several sizes larger. The more graves there were, the more people guarding the graves. It would be difficult for them to get close to the graves without being discovered. Thus, the two of them hid in a remote area and discussed the matter. What should we do? If you use the Earth Secret Art to dig through here, can you guarantee that you will reach it accurately? Hong Tailong's expression was very solemn. Yu Qianshou stared at the peak of the mountain in the distance and muttered, "It's not a problem to arrive precisely, but it's unavoidable that we have to check our position during the process. I'm afraid that we'll be discovered by someone. That won't do. Once the news of me robbing the tomb spreads out, the other tomb guards will definitely check the tombs they are guarding. If they discover that as long as I've been to a place, the tombs have been robbed, there's no way to explain it. For the dragon race to do such a thing, it's too damaging to the dragon race's dignity. Hong Tailong shook his head firmly, insisting that Yu Qianqiu think of a more reliable method. It's easy to not be discovered. Actually, it's still the old method that's more reliable. It's just that this time we're targeting more people. Use your identity as the dragon race's envoy to gather all the tomb guards in this mountain range. Just say that you're investigating the details of the murder of the Wind God's tomb guards, Tianfeng and Difeng. Hearing this, Hong Tailong bared his teeth. However, when he saw Yu Qianqiu's expression of, "I'll listen to you if you have a better idea," he placed his hands on his waist and spun around a few times. Then he shook his red-haired head and faced Yu Qianqiu. He made up his mind and said, "This is the last time. Don't do it again." After saying this, he flew towards the mountain range ahead. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and sat down to wait. Soon, he saw streams of light flying towards a corner of the mountain range. After waiting for a while longer, Hong Tailong's voice transmission came. "It's about time. We can make our move now." The other party's tone was like that of a thief. However, Yu Qianqiu became spirited. He carefully determined the location of the main peak of the mountain range. Then, as if he was sitting on an elevator, he directly sank into the ground and disappeared. Underground, it was as if he was moving forward in a bubble. Everywhere he went, the mud and rocks parted for him. Along the way, he poked his head out from the ground halfway up the mountain. He stealthily determined the location again and continued diving down. What a person. Now that he had reached this level, his sneaky style still hadn't changed. After reaching the center of the main peak, he directly ascended. Not long later, there was a layer of blood jade and red crystals blocking his way. Without a second word, he broke through the layer and jumped up. The area of the tomb was obviously bigger than the tombs he had raided before. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was as big as a hall. However, this wasn't what he was concerned about. He was only concerned about the Wind God's corpse. However, the bed of blood jade and red crystals in the middle was empty. Where did the corpse go? Yu Qianqiu was puzzled. He looked around and was shocked when he raised his head to look at the dome above. He saw an almost naked, well-built man floating above. Strands of red light densely covered his body. It was extremely strange. The scariest thing was that the other party was actually looking at him with his eyes wide open. Damn it! What kind of joke was this? Could it be that the Wind God had already been resurrected? Yu Qianqiu's heart was beating like a drum. Then he comforted himself. Maybe the eyes of the corpse were always open. It was just like how people sleep with their eyes open. There was a saying that went, "Die with everlasting regret." He coughed and pretended not to see the corpse. With his hands behind his back, he acted like nothing had happened. It seemed like he had entered this place by mistake. He slowly wandered to the corner. Suddenly, he raised his head and heaved a sigh of relief. The corpse was still staring in one direction without moving. Damn it! I was almost scared to death. That's strange. Why is the corpse floating? Halfway through his monologue, the muscles on Yu Qianqiu's face began to twitch. He saw the corpse's eyeballs slowly moving, and its head slowly tilted to the side. That gaze seemed to see everything as rotten, and there was no emotion in it. It was not cold, but there was no expression. It was like looking at a blank piece of paper. It was as simple as that. Then, the floating body slowly descended and stood barefoot on the stone bed of blood jade and red crystals. Your senior Wind God? Yu Qianqiu coughed and bowed respectfully. He had already communicated with Utopia and was prepared to escape at any time. This was because he could not see through the other party's cultivation with his cultivation of a late-stage great god. It was not difficult for him to determine who the other party was. He was just having a headache. What about Hong Tailong, who had gathered a group of tomb guards for a meeting after he escaped? It was another matter whether he would be beaten to death if he left that guy behind. The key was that only that guy knew how to set up the passageway from the netherworld divine manor to the divine realm. I'm Wings of Wind God. Who are you? That person seemed to have not spoken for a long time. His lips moved slightly, letting out a hoarse and rough voice. His eyes were still looking at him without any expression, as if he was a jade statue that had been buried with him. Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists in a graceful manner and said, Junior Yu Qianqiu has long admired Senior Wind God's great name. I've specially come to pay a visit. His face was filled with a harmless smile, but his mind was still thinking about how to rescue Hong Tailong while ensuring his own safety. Yu Qianqiu. The hoarse voice had a hint of taste. He shook his head slightly as if he could not remember this person. Then he sighed softly in a hoarse voice and said, "Have Tianfeng and Diffing been killed by someone?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. His mind was filled with doubts. Since the wind god had been resurrected, why was he still staying here instead of going out? With his abilities, how could he sit back and watch as his two subordinates were killed by that old guy? Especially when he asked this question, it was even more confusing. "Senior, don't you know?" Yu Qianqiu tried to ask. The strong and almost naked wind god stood on the stone bed like a stone statue and said slowly in a hoarse voice, "The two of them are the entities cultivated by the fusion of the heavenly soul and the earthly soul of my 3 physical souls and 7 physical souls with the wind spirit. Although my 7 physical souls have been destroyed, my life soul is still attached to my broken body. After I woke up, I couldn't sense the two of them. I think they are gone." "Senior, you just resurrected not long ago?" Yu Qianqiu asked in surprise, but the other party did not answer. Obviously it was a tacit agreement. However, it also solved the question that puzzled Yu Qianqiu just now. Then he cupped his fists and said regretfully, "Senior, to tell you the truth, Tianfeng and Diffing were indeed killed by an expert who suddenly appeared. This should have happened not long before you woke up." "An expert who suddenly appeared?" The wind god chuckled in a hoarse and sad voice. "The mausoleum of the god of God has a boundary of heaven personally set up by Tao. If he did not secretly push things, who could break through his boundary of heaven and break in? Even the great god Yi or the war god Rui Shengsheng could not break in. It is said that the great way is ruthless." "Tao, you are ruthless. So cruel. You want to draw a prison and imprison my lonely soul. As long as I don't follow your great way, you will make it so that I can never be resurrected." Yu Qianqiu frowned. He knew that there were 2 people who could enter and exit the boundary of heaven at will. If it was said that Taishu Xian was released by the mysterious Tao, he might believe it. As for Bai Changchun and Xinyu, they couldn't be released by Tao, right? "Senior Wind God, didn't I see that you have resurrected?" Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously. "Resurrected? My physical body may have resurrected, but this lonely soul of mine is neither yin nor yang. It is just that the remnant of my divine sense is not extinguished. As long as I walk out of this cage of blood jade and red crystals and come into contact with any yin and yang aura, I will immediately turn into ashes. The so-called resurrection is just a joke. In the game rules of Tao, the dead can never be resurrected. The only way is to reincarnate. Only by giving up everything in the previous life can one be reborn." Chapter 12:28. These words shocked Yu Qianqiu. He subconsciously asked, could it be that the legend of resurrection in this blood jade red crystal tomb is fake? It couldn't be more real. But after resurrection I can't even step out of this tomb. What's the difference between being alive and being dead? Wind God let out a self-deprecating chuckle in a hoarse voice. He looked around the tomb listlessly. "I realized this a long time ago. That's why I separated the heaven soul and earth soul of the 3 souls and 7 spirits to create the 2 messengers, heaven wind and earth wind. This was so that if an accident happened in the future, I could merge with them after resurrection. After the 3 souls merged, even if my cultivation couldn't return to its peak, I could at least walk freely in this boundary formation of heavens. I thought this was done secretly, but I didn't expect that before I resurrected, heaven wind and earth wind met with an accident. It seems that Tao must have known about this long ago." Yu Qianqiu laughed in his heart. He knew Bai Changchun too well. How could he be ordered to plot against others? No matter how powerful Tao was, old Bai wouldn't be a lackey of Tao. It was only because heaven wind and earth wind had the highest cultivation in the mausoleum of the god of sin that they were worth challenging. What did it have to do with Tao? Wind God thought too much. "Senior Wind God, I've heard of Tao for a long time. I wonder who this Tao is and how high is his cultivation. How can he intimidate the gods of heaven and earth?" Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. "I've never seen the true face of Tao. I can vaguely feel his existence when he appears, but it's illusory. As for how high his cultivation is, no one has seen him fight, so there's no way to judge. But the pressure and momentum when he appears is indeed very powerful. Even the great god Yi and Coiling Dragon are willing to listen to his orders. It can be seen that his cultivation must be terrifyingly high, and no one dares to test his depth." Speaking of this, he seemed to think of something. He suddenly stared at Yu Qianqiu. "You haven't told me who you are and why you broke into my tomb. You seem to have used the earth spirit technique when you came in just now?" A faint green light appeared in her eyes as she examined him. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He knew that sometimes speaking the truth was very hurtful. It was just like meeting a woman. Regardless of whether she was beautiful or not, a casual compliment would make the other party happy. Conversely, it would only make the other party angry. Therefore, he could never tell the other party that he was here to steal his corpse. He coughed and said, "I am a tomb keeper in the tomb of the god of sin." "How is this possible?" The wind god suddenly exclaimed and interrupted him. His eyes widened as if he had seen something unbelievable. Yu Qianzhou's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the other party was so mysterious that he knew I was lying before I even finished speaking? He was ready to leave, but the next words of the wind god stunned him again. Wood spirit aura, fire spirit aura, metal spirit aura, earth spirit aura. You actually swallowed the 4 spirits. Could it be that you have practiced these 4 spirit techniques at the same time? He himself had practiced the wind walking technique. After swallowing the wind spirit, he achieved success in practicing it and became the wind god. In addition, his cultivation was high, so he immediately found the aura of the 4 spirits after a careful inspection. Should he go or not? After hesitating for a while, Yu Qianzhou decided to take a look. After all, it was not common to meet such an ancient god. Maybe there would be some major discoveries. His eyes flashed and he replied weakly, "Actually, I have practiced the 5 attributes of water, fire, metal, wood, and earth. It's just that I haven't found the trace of the water spirit in this boundary formation of all heavens, so it's a little regretful." "What?" the wind god exclaimed. His face, which had never been shocked, finally showed an incomparable expression. "You have practiced Goddess Nuwa's 5 elements great method? How do you know Goddess Nuwa's 5 elements great method? What is your relationship with Goddess Nuwa? Who is Goddess Nuwa?" Yu Qianzhou was shocked. It seemed that Hong Tailong's words were true. However, he still had a puzzled look on his face. He scratched his head and said, "I comprehended this 5 elements great method from the transformation of the stars. I didn't learn it from anyone. Senior, did you see wrongly? Apart from Goddess Nuwa's 5 elements great method, which can seize the fortune of the universe, it's impossible for anyone to have 5 attributes at the same time without conflict. Who are you? What is your relationship with Tao?" The wind god bellowed angrily. He spread his 5 claws and a whirlwind rose in the tomb, directly sucking Yu Qianzhou over. With Yu Qianzhou's cultivation, he didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. However, just as his palm was about to grab hold of Yu Qianzhou, the flustered Yu Qianzhou suddenly disappeared in front of his eyes. The wind god was very shocked. He couldn't believe that a late-stage great god cultivator could actually slip away from his eyes without a sound when he had locked onto him. After a long time, he cried out involuntarily, "The star bead of Tao. Tao, you've gone too far. I've already fallen to such a state and you still want to send someone to toy with me?" A sorrowful and angry shout reverberated in the mountain range illuminated by the bright moonlight, causing the entire mountain range to shake violently. On the tomb mountain, a group of tomb guards were gathered in a corner of the mountain range, denouncing Bai Changchun's evil deeds to the dragon envoy. Hong Tailong nodded and listened with a solemn expression. From time to time he would even find a topic to talk about, trying his best to stall for time. On the surface he looked calm, but his eyes kept glancing at the main peak of the mountain range. He thought to himself, "What the hell is this brat doing? Why isn't he done yet? Did something happen to him?" His good intentions didn't come true, but his bad intentions came true. Suddenly, a sorrowful and angry shout rang out, causing him to shudder in fear. As the earth quaked and the mountains shook, all the tomb guards looked at the main peak of the mountain range in horror. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "The wind god has resurrected, the wind god has resurrected." As soon as this was said, everyone flew towards the main peak of the mountain range with indescribable joy. The wind god has resurrected? Before Hong Tailong could wrap his head around the situation, he suddenly realized that the huge tomb on the main peak of the mountain range was slowly being uprooted from the inlaid mountain and rising into the sky. His forehead instantly broke out in a cold sweat. Putting aside Yu Qianzhou's life and death, just the fact that the wind god was killed by the coiling dragon old ancestor meant that the wind god would not let him off easily the moment he saw him, the dragon envoy. Wiping off his cold sweat, Hong Tailong immediately turned into a beam of light and fled. As he fled, he even gritted his teeth and smiled bitterly as he muttered to himself, "Yu Qianzhou, it's not that I'm not loyal enough to abandon you and run away alone. But you have the Star Pearl's teleportation ability, so escaping shouldn't be a problem. You have to run away. If you die in the hands of the wind god, I won't be able to leave this place." Yu Qianqiu, who had fled back to Utopia, patted his chest for a while with lingering fear. He felt that it was a close shave. When the wind god's claw came, he could not move at all. His divine sense was also imprisoned and could not move. If he had not been vigilant and had his divine sense hooked up with Utopia long ago, he would have escaped with just a thought. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the hands of the wind god. Remembering that Hong Tailong was still in the mausoleum of the god of sin, Yu Qianqiu hurriedly barged into the ethereal palace. Ignoring the questions of others, he found Xinyu and dragged him to the isolation zone between the endless dark cliff and the celestial boundary. Xinyu was already used to it and naturally knew what he had to do. He jumped into the Netherworld River and transformed into a mussel, carrying Yu Qianqiu against the current. As soon as he stepped into the territory of the mausoleum of the god of sin, Yu Qianqiu immediately threw Xinyu back to Utopia and flew toward the mountain where the wind god was buried. A day later, flying at high speed, Yu Qianqiu, who was constantly vigilant of his surroundings, suddenly discovered a familiar figure hiding in a call at the side. Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment before he rushed over with joy. Flying above the call, he saw Hong Tailong sneakily burrowing under a crack of a rock. He looked very careful and did not seem to want to make any noise. Yu Qianqiu landed on the rock and frowned as he stared below. Hong Tailong, what are you doing? What treasure are you hiding? Hong Tailong retreated quickly. When he saw that it was Yu Qianqiu, he heaved a sigh of relief. I saw someone flying over from afar and thought that I had been exposed, so I wanted to hide first. I didn't expect it to be you. I knew that you would be able to escape. It's good that you are not dead, it's good that you are not dead. What happened? Has the tomb rating been exposed? I wanted to ask you what happened. Why did the wind god suddenly revive? Hong Tailong recounted what he had heard, as well as the scene of the wind god's tomb flying. It can't leave the tomb, but it can move along with it. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He had thought that since the wind god couldn't leave the tomb, it would definitely instruct the tomb guards to target him. He did not expect the wind god to move along with the tomb. This place was too dangerous. He did not think that he could defeat the wind god just because he hid in the tomb. He looked around warily, waved his hand and said, "We shouldn't stay here for long. Let's go back first." The two of them disappeared. After returning to Utopia, the two of them stood on the cliff of Ethereal Peak. Yu Qianqiu told Hong Tailong about the process of encountering the wind god's revival. After Hong Tailong heard it, he was stunned for a moment before saying, "Then what's the point of this revival? In that case, isn't this mausoleum of the god of sin a place of death row prisoners? Is the Tao lying?" His expression seemed to be unable to accept that the Tao that his dragon race served was actually a liar. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and did not say anything else. He walked to the edge of the cliff and summoned 80 earth souls and 10 golden souls. He scattered them to the ground at the bottom of the cliff and held the 10 fire souls in his hands before disappearing from the cliff alone. Half a day later, Yu Qianqiu appeared on the cliff again. His entire body was surrounded by true Samadhi fire. Following him were 10 fire soul mystic soldiers that were burning with true Samadhi fire. They stood in a row behind him with an astonishing aura. He looked at the setting sun in the distant sky. The wind blew the colorful flames on his body. He extended a flaming palm down the cliff and summoned, "My mystic soldiers, come out." Chapter 12:29. With this deep summon, the ground beneath the cliff started to crack. 90 figures shot out rapidly from the ground and landed on the cliff. Yu Qianqiu retracted his palm, and the true Samadhi fire that was lingering around his body also retracted into his body. He slowly turned around to look at them. The 80 Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers were like stone giants, the 10 Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers were like armored generals, and the 10 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers were like demons from hell. There was a total of 100 of them. There were 16 late-stage great gods, 30 mid-stage great gods and 54 early-stage great gods. The bodies of the Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers were clearly much thinner than the other two types. It was clear that the metal elements beneath the cliff were not enough for them to absorb. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed in the direction of Utopia's military camp. The 10 Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers shot into the sky rapidly and started to divide up the metal body that was left behind when they devoured Jin Tai. Hong Tailong, who was frowning and in deep thought, had long been startled awake by such a huge scene. He opened his mouth and sized up the large pile of mystic soldiers, crying out, "Yu Qianqiu, what are you trying to do by creating such a huge scene?" What do you think I'm trying to do?" Yu Qianqiu let out a F***ck and waved his hand in high spirits. I'm going to the demon realm to fight Demon Lord 3 nights. Damn it. My heaven-splitting arrow is still in his hands. If I don't snatch it back, I'll be in pain even in my dreams. Now that I can't find anyone to help me, I can only do it myself. If I can't fight with brute force, I'll try to outsmart him. Hong Tailong pointed at the large group of mystic soldiers and rolled his eyes. You call this outsmart him? I think you're saying it the other way around. We're going to fight with brute force and we're going to risk our lives, right? It doesn't matter if it's the other way around or not. We're going to fight anyway. If we can't win, we'll just run. You have to consider this carefully. Demon Lord 3 Knights has the support of Demon Lord 3 Knights. It's useless no matter how many mystic soldiers you bring. I'll say this first. I'm not going to take that risk with you. Demon Lord 3 Knights is much more terrifying than Wind God. Hong Tailong shrank his head with a cautious expression. I didn't ask you to go. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and sneered, I don't believe that Mo Shen will stay in the demon realm to support San Yi every day. This time, I want to end the battle quickly with a sneak attack and catch him off guard. It would be best if I can kill San Yi. When Hong Tailong saw his expression, he knew that this fellow's stupidity was starting to come out again. He reckoned that he would not be able to persuade him anymore. Demon King 3 Knight's eyes were filled with anger as his deafening voice resounded through the sky. How dare you attack the body that I possess? Pay with your life. A black light flashed out of Demon King 3 Knight's body and shot into the sky, disappearing into the blue dome of heaven. Demon Monarch 3 Knight's body powerlessly fell from the sky, smashing into the dust and becoming a bloody mess. The people of the Devil Realm that had rushed over from all directions were dumbfounded and flew over in fear. Chapter 1230. Yu Qianqiu, who had fled back to Utopia in a panic, sat down on a cliff. When Hong Tailong saw how he was bleeding from his 7 orifices, he immediately jumped up in shock. Where's the dark weapon you brought? Did you encounter a demonic god again? Yu Qianqiu nodded. He quickly inspected his injuries and found that even though the commotion from earlier was quite frightening, it was much better than his previous injuries. It was just that he had been badly frightened, to the point that his legs were a little weak. I told you, but you didn't listen. Now look at you. You're just asking for trouble? Hong Tailong furrowed his brows and reprimanded him. Finally, he sighed and said, It's a blessing in the misfortune that you managed to escape alive again. It's good that you're alive. Before he could finish his sentence, their expressions changed at the same time. The atmosphere in Utopia instantly became abnormally heavy, as though something terrifying was staring at them. The two of them slowly raised their heads and looked up into the sky. A pair of dreamlike gigantic demonic eyes appeared high up in the sky and locked onto the ground below. This wasn't the first time he had seen this pair of eyes. Yu Qianqiu was all too familiar with them. He didn't expect them to track them all the way to Utopia. He was almost scared out of his wits. Hong Tailong was also dumbfounded. With such an oppressive aura descending from the sky, as long as he wasn't a fool, he would be able to guess whose eyes those belonged to. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty and said, It's a demonic god. Everyone in the ethereal palace came out in shock and looked at the sky in horror. Many people didn't know what was going on, and it wasn't the first time they had seen it. For example, Nongzhu had seen it back in Spirit Fong Valley. Yu Qianqiu's pupils contracted. He immediately realized that a demonic god wouldn't appear here for no reason. His heart trembled and he immediately cried out to the people who had come out of Ethereal Palace, It's a demonic god. Let's go. Nongzhu also shouted to everyone with a pale face, Everyone disperse. Rumble. A muffled sound rang out in the sky, causing the sky to change color. A crack in the void suddenly appeared in the sky, and a hideous demonic claw with monstrous demonic chi stretched out from the crack, stirring up waves of wind and thunder, and slammed down. Yu Qianqiu's eyes widened. He could not save everyone in time. Biting his lip, he disappeared with Hong Tailong. Boom. A loud sound rang out, as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. The ethereal palace, along with the entire mountain, was smashed into smithereens. Monstrous demonic chi swept out in all directions like demonic dragons, sweeping through everything in its path. The people who had already fled far away were all sent flying by the shocking demonic chi. Although Nongzhu had always been at odds with Jade Flower Fairy, she still wanted to protect the mother and daughter at the critical moment. But at the most dangerous moment, the husband and wife resolutely put protecting their daughter first. However, Their cultivation was not enough to resist the remaining power of the Fiend Celestial. Under the Fiend Celestial Lord Crocodile's attack, they turned into ashes. Even though they had blocked the attack for their daughter, Zi was still seriously injured. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. A huge river clam jumped out of the dust. After a flash of light, Xinyu appeared. He shook his head dizzily and he could not stand steadily. At the critical moment he revealed his true form to protect himself. The shell of the river clam actually blocked the attack of the Fiend Celestial for him, and he was unharmed. It was a miracle. In the distance Wu Lixue flew over with a group of people. When he saw the scene in front of him he was stunned. The Wu family was lucky. Wu Lixue wanted to bring his family around Utopia, so he asked Guan Yu, who was familiar with this place, to guide them. However, they did not expect to avoid a disaster because of this. After realizing that something was wrong, they rushed over, but they did not expect this to happen. When Guan Yu saw Bai Sujin, who was covered in blood, he immediately rushed over to support her. He asked anxiously, "Sister Bai, are you okay?" With Wu Sihai's command, the Wu family immediately scattered and rushed over to help the injured. Yu Qianqiu, who had escaped to the immortal world with Hong Tailong, did not even have time to catch his breath. Another crack in the void appeared high in the sky, and the Fiend Celestial Claw attacked again. Fiend Celestial, F***CK your ancestors. Yu Qianqiu cursed angrily and disappeared with Hong Tailong. He turned to Utopia, and directly appeared on the island where Lu Yanqing and Wen Lanfeng lived in seclusion. Lu Yanqing and Wen Lanfeng were also frightened by the shocking movement in the distance. The two stood at the highest point of the island and looked into the distance. Lu Yanqing. Quickly go to the Misty Palace to save them, quickly. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly said. He did not dare to stay for too long, afraid that he would bring disaster to Utopia again. He disappeared in an instant. Lu Yanqing's expression froze. She said to Wen Lanfeng, who had lost all his cultivation, "Wait for me here. I'll go take a look." In the Fiend Celestial world, Yu Qianqiu appeared in the direction of the Fiend Celestial Palace with Hong Tailong, who was still in shock. At this moment, a group of Fiend Celestials were kneeling in front of Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse, looking very sad. Yu Qianqiu's appearance gave them a fright. No one thought that they were his match. They immediately hugged Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse and fled in panic. Yu Qianqiu was not in the mood to settle the score with them. He was just temporarily taking refuge. After seeing Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse, Hong Tailong said in shock, "You killed Demon Monarch 3 Knights?" "Should be." Yu Qianqiu nodded and admitted. Then he was startled. He sensed that the 10,000 divine swords were buried below. At this moment, the array that sealed the 10,000 divine swords had been destroyed by the demonic god himself. He could naturally sense it. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and 10,000 golden rays shot out from the ground. The 10,000 swords returned to one and returned to his hand. However, just as he grabbed it, there was another muffled rumble in the air. That pitch-black and malevolent demonic claw stretched out like a devil. The two of them cried out and fled again. They quickly turned to Utopia and appeared in the Netherworld world. Hong Tailong trembled as he looked around and said, "It's over. The demonic god has his eyes on you. Let's go our separate ways. It's too dangerous to follow you." Just as he finished speaking, another spatial crack tore open in the sky. Hong Tailong immediately grabbed Yu Qianqiu's arm and exclaimed, "Don't leave me behind. Take me with you and escape." In the divine illusionary realm, a majestic lion with a pair of colorful wings spread its wings and landed at the place where the massacre had occurred. On his head stood Wu Lixue's pheasant phoenix. Oh my god. The pheasant phoenix covered its eyes with its wings and looked at the scene of devastation. It shook its head and exclaimed in a childish female voice, "What exactly happened? Sister Schwerer, where's Sister Schwerer? Yu Qianqiu, we can't possibly hide like this for the rest of our lives. If this goes on, the demonic god will be even more annoyed that he can't catch us. When that happens, we might not be able to escape. I have an idea. Let's go to the Netherworld Divine Abode. I'll open a passage to the Divine Realm and take refuge there." A voice suddenly sounded from behind the hill in front of them. The rainbow-feathered Lion King was stunned, but the pheasant phoenix on its head jumped and cheered, old dragon, it's me, is it you?" Hearing this, the rainbow-feathered Lion King immediately flashed to the top of the hill and looked down at the two of them. At the bottom of the hill, Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong looked back at the same time. When they saw each other clearly, they were stunned. Yu Qianqiu said in surprise, "Pheasant, you're not dead yet? You're the one who's dead." The pheasant snorted unhappily, seemingly admitting that it was a pheasant. It then asked, "Bad guy, what happened here?" Yu Qianqiu was not in the mood to chat with it. He vigilantly looked around the sky, ready to avoid the demonic god's pursuit at any time. However, what surprised him was that the demonic god didn't seem to be able to find a place for them to hide. Under the repeated urging of the pheasant, he simply told it about the demonic god's pursuit. Then he stared at the lion at its feet and asked, "Who is this?" The pheasant proudly introduced, Rainbow-Feathered Lion King, the descendant of the divine illusionary realm's divine guardian beast of the Phoenix Temple. Don't look down on its current cultivation. If it obtains the inheritance, it will become very powerful. Chapter 1231. The Divine Realm, the original Light Palace, and now the Demon Domain. Above the towering cliff shrouded in demonic clouds, a lonely figure was facing the never-ending wind above the ninth heaven. His stalwart body was motionless, only the black waistcoat wrapped around his body was fluttering in the wind. His long hair was fluttering and his diamond-like eyes were flashing with anger. A cultivator of the late stage of the great god realm had repeatedly escaped from his hands, which really made him angry. Standing on the edge of the cliff, he gently took a step into the void. It seemed to be a casual step, but he had crossed thousands of miles. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the endless stars of the universe. The vast sea of stars for him was like a leisurely stroll. Just as he was about to take another step, suddenly there were two groups of light and shadows in front of him. A golden dragon of thousands of feet long drilled out of the void, roaming among the endless stars. As the golden scales opened and closed, a majestic dragon breath spread into the depths of the endless universe. A phoenix of thousands of feet long flew out of the void, dragging a long colorful tail, flapping its wings and flying in the brilliant starry sky. An ancient and sacred aura flowed back and forth along with the colorful halos around its body. Roar! The divine dragon roared in the starry sky, meandering over, winding and coiling together. The majestic dragon head stood with its chest out, looking majestically at the man wrapped in a black waistcoat below. Clang clang. The colorful phoenix issued a sonorous ancient sound in the starry sky, swaying and swaying, looking at the man wrapped in a black waistcoat with a noble and auspicious expression. In front of these two ancient beasts, the stalwart body of demon god Night was as small as an ant in this vast starry sky. He looked at the two ancient beasts in front of him and snorted coldly, "Coiling dragon phoenix, are you two a match for me?" The two beasts shone with a magnificent light, more and more dazzling, making people not dare to look directly at them, but demon god Night ignored them. The strong light suddenly disappeared, and a strong man with a bare upper body wearing a pair of knee-length yellow shorts appeared. His muscles were full and strong like stones, his skin was bronze, his eyes were bright and full of expression, and his whole body was covered with a faint golden glow. A plump woman in a long dress stood in the starry sky, her clothes indescribably gorgeous, her beauty so noble that all women in the world felt ashamed of their inferiority. Her beautiful eyes were full of spirit, and her body was covered with a faint layer of sacred light. This man and woman were the legendary ancient god Coiling Dragon and ancient god Phoenix. "Night, what, do you want to fight us?" The noble ancient Phoenix god smiled faintly. Her voice was so beautiful that nothing in the world could compare to it. It was as if her voice alone could dissolve all hostility in the world. Demon god Yi snorted coldly, "Didn't the two of you rush here to stop me?" Ancient god Coiling Dragon shook his head and sighed, "Night, we are only here to remind you that your bet with Tao isn't far away. Do you really want to break the agreement between the two of you?" Demon god Night shook his head and sighed, "Night, we are only here to remind you that your bet with Tao is not far away. Do you really want to break the agreement between you two?" The diamond light in demon god Night's eyes brightened. He stared at ancient god Coiling Dragon and slowly said, "Do we still need to gamble? Tao is looking down on me too much by finding such a person to fight me. Anyone can see that it's impossible for him to be a match for me. Instead of wasting time, it's better for me to finish him off now. Why should I drag it on? Tao found such a person to fight with me. He is underestimating me too much. Anyone can see that he is not my match. Instead of wasting time, I might as well finish him off now." Demon god Night said disdainfully, "Tao star bead, Nuwa's great art of 5 elements, Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow, all gathered on one person. If I can't see such an obvious thing, wouldn't I be a fool?" Demon god Night's tone was full of disdain. "Tao's star bead, Nuwa's 5 elements grand technique, and Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow are all concentrated on one person. Wouldn't I be a fool if I couldn't see such an obvious thing? Dao spared no effort in order to raise someone who can defeat me. Of all the people he could have chosen, he just had to choose a useless brat. Even if his 5 elements grand technique can devour the water god, even if he cultivates for another 10,000 years, he will still not be my match. Ancient Phoenix chimed in, Knight, if you really want to revive Dark, you should wait a little longer. The day of the final battle is not far away. Of course, if you don't want to revive Dark, we have nothing to say and won't stop you. The man and woman stepped aside at the same time, opening up the path to the boundless and mysterious stars. Demon God Knight remained silent for a long time. His gaze swept across the two's faces before he snorted and disappeared. The man and woman looked at each other and smiled. Then they shook their heads and sighed, quietly disappearing into the stars. Divine Illusionary Realm. So this guy was the rainbow-feathered Lion King that guarded the Divine Illusionary Realm. Yu Qianqiu carefully sized up the winged lion and realized that it was only at the early stage of small god. No wonder it wasn't Jin Tai's match. He didn't have much time to think about other things. He nodded, It's an honor to meet you. The rainbow-feathered Lion King's gaze turned cold. He could tell that Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong's cultivation were higher than his. Ah! Pheasant suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, Bad guy. Demon God is chasing you. Is Sister Shui all right? Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes, and the tragic scene in Utopia appeared in his mind. After opening his eyes, he shook his head slightly and said, She's fine. When the pheasant heard that, it patted its chest with its wings and seemed to heave a sigh of relief. Phoenix Divine Temple. Hong Tai Long muttered to himself repeatedly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he said, Little Phoenix, is the Phoenix Divine Temple that the great Phoenix God built in the Divine Void Realm still there? It is. I've already found it. Pheasant said excitedly. Suddenly, he said with vigilance, Bad Hong Tai Long, are you planning something? He had long felt that this dragon and bad guys were birds of a feather, and he was the scum of the dragon race. Hong Tai Long didn't answer him. Instead, he pulled Yu Qianqiu excitedly and said, Yu Qianqiu, we don't need to hide anymore. The Phoenix Temple is the place where the Phoenix God cultivated in seclusion. As long as we hide in the Phoenix Temple, unless the demon god comes personally, he might not be able to break through the temple's protective restriction. Let's quickly hide in the Phoenix Temple. The rainbow-feathered Lion King suddenly said, The temple is protected by a restriction. We can't enter. Even little Phoenix couldn't enter after trying for a long time. Only with the protection of the Phoenix Cloud Robe can we enter safely. Pheasant nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking rice. Yes. Only Sister Shui can enter. Ah. Hong Tai Long was startled. Little Phoenix, you're saying that heartless girl Wu Lixue has the Phoenix Cloud Robe? You're the heartless one, afraid of death, the scum of the dragon race. Pheasant said with disdain. Hong Tai Long straightened his neck and explained, Little Phoenix, children shouldn't speak nonsense if they don't know anything. How can this be called being afraid of death? This is called where there's life, there's hope. Besides, I'm also thinking about your sister Shue's safety. Do you understand? Yu Qianqiu only roughly listened to their conversation. His attention was still on the surroundings. After a while, he didn't notice any movement. He couldn't help but ask curiously, What's going on? Could it be that the demon god can't detect that we've entered the divine illusionary realm, or has he given up on killing us? Why hasn't there been any movement until now? When he said this, Hong Tai Long also came back to his senses. He looked around and said curiously, That's right. It's been a long time. What's going on? Wait for me here. I'll go out and take a look. Yu Qianqiu said and disappeared on the spot. After quickly passing through Utopia, he appeared in the immortal world again. Those who died directly or indirectly at his hands, especially the hundreds of billions of soldiers that he forced to their deaths in the demon world, added up, even he himself couldn't count how many people he had killed. In his daze, he muttered to himself with a confused look in his eyes, Did I really do something wrong? Chapter 1232. Bai Suzhen, dressed in a blood-stained white dress, slowly walked up to him. She leaned her cheek on his shoulder and said in a low voice, Take me to the Blue Sea Deathly Realm. Her tone was indifferent but extremely determined. Yu Qianqiu turned around with one arm around the crying hibiscus. Looking at Bai Suzhen's emotionless face, He knew that she wanted to use the blue sea essence to refine her body and quickly improve her cultivation. She hoped that one day she could take revenge on the demon god. Of course he could totally refuse to take her there, but how could he refuse under such circumstances? He had caused such a huge disaster and even caused the death of her adoptive father. How could he refuse? All right. Yu Qianqiu, who had been silent for a long time, uttered these two words. He patted Hibiscus's back lightly and let go of her. Holding Bai Sujin's hand, they disappeared together. The two of them appeared on the island of the Blue Sea Deathly Realm. Holding hands, they quietly looked at the deadly light pillars that shot into the sky from time to time. Bai Sujin wanted to let go of his hand and dive into the sea, but Yu Qianqiu held her hand tightly. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. I'll go with you. A bubble wrapped around the two of them as they dove into the deep blue sea. When they reached the bottom of the sea, they did not find the blue sea gold essence. Instead, they saw the deadly light pillars that shot out from the bottom of the sea. Yu Qianqiu performed the water spell and pointed at them. An undercurrent immediately appeared in the water and swept away the sand that covered the bottom of the sea. The moment the sand at the bottom of the sea was swept away, a translucent metal that looked like a blue crystal gradually appeared in front of them. The blue radiance that blossomed from it dyed the underwater world a bright and snowy blue. It made them feel as if they were in a blue fairy tale world. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand anxiously, and the undercurrent in the water uncovered a blue translucent metal that was almost a kilometer in circumference. Its surface was bumpy and uneven, and some parts were even protruding. A majestic aura that made one's mind sway as if they were in a dream. And this was just the tip of the iceberg of the blue transparent metal. If all the silt at the bottom of the sea was removed, who knew how big this strange meteorite would be? On the surface of the blue transparent metal, there were blue streams of lightning-like flowing light. Whenever two streams of flowing light collided, they would immediately erupt into a fatal blue beam of light that shot towards the surface of the sea. According to the records of the Myriad Demon Heart Sutra, that should be the essence of the blue sea. Bai Sujin pointed to a place. Yu Qianqiu looked over and saw that there was a groove on the surface of the blue transparent metal. He couldn't let her continue to take risks. However, just as he was about to step in, the golden pearl in his dantian seemed to sense something. It suddenly burst with dazzling golden light. The magnificent blue liquid also burst with blue light. The two kinds of light resisted each other as if they were repelling each other. No matter how hard Yu Qianqiu tried, he couldn't take a step closer. In the end he was forcefully pushed away. At this moment the two kinds of light quietly disappeared. Yu Qianqiu looked at himself in confusion. He then looked at the blue liquid. He didn't know what was going on. Yu Qianqiu, get out of here quickly. I can feel the energy of the blue sea gold essence throbbing when you come near. It's so violent that I almost lost control of my mind. Bai Sujin's pained voice drifted out from the blue liquid. Yu Qianqiu didn't know why it was like this, but he didn't dare to do it again. After hesitating for a while, for Bai Sujin's safety, he gritted his teeth and flew out from the bottom of the sea. He landed on the island and waited quietly and anxiously. 3 days later, the restless Yu Qianqiu suddenly saw Bai Sujin's figure emerging from the bottom of the sea. She stood quietly on the surface of the sea and didn't move an inch. He immediately flashed over and found that Bai Sujin's eyes had turned a strange blue color. It looked a little scary and she seemed to be in a daze. Yu Qianqiu was almost scared out of his wits. He quickly asked, "What's wrong with you?" The other party was indifferent, as if she didn't hear him at all. She picked Bai Sujin up by the waist and flew to the island. Then she laid her down carefully on the beach. At this moment Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He saw that the blue light in Bai Sujin's eyes started to shine with a blue light. It grew stronger and weaker, as if it was gradually being absorbed into her body. Yu Qianqiu grabbed her wrist and checked the situation inside her body. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he did he was shocked. Bai Sujin's cultivation was rising at an unbelievable speed. It seemed like the weaker the blue light in her eyes, the stronger her cultivation would be. It wasn't until the blue light in her eyes had shrunk to the size of a needle tip that her cultivation stopped growing. At this time, Bai Sujin's cultivation had actually risen to the early stage of minor god. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't notice the two needle-tip-sized blue lights in her eyes. The magical effect of the blue sea essence made Yu Qianqiu's jaw drop in disbelief. He couldn't help but look back at the sea, having the urge to try again. At this time, Bai Sujin's eyes gradually moved and she slowly sat up. However, when she saw her hand was grabbed by Yu Qianqiu, she suddenly shook it off and teleported to the side. She asked coldly, "Who are you?" Chapter 1233. After bringing the overjoyed Wu Lixue to the divine illusionary realm, Hong Tailong, Pheasant, and the rainbow-feathered Lion King were still waiting for him. Naturally, Wu Lixue and Pheasant hugged and cried out in joy. Hong Tailong approached Yu Qianqiu and asked about the demon god. After learning that the demon god was no longer looking for trouble, Hong Tailong heaved a sigh of relief. I just don't know if the demon god is not looking for trouble for the time being or if he will come again in the future. How can we live in fear every day? After Hong Tailong sighed, his eyes suddenly lit up. He elbowed Yu Qianqiu and said, "Oh right, how is your mission to administer punishment on behalf of the heavens? If it's almost done, we might as well seek refuge in the divine realm. With the protection of Coiling Dragon Ancestor at the Divine Dragon Mountain, the demon god may not be able to find us." Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He thought to himself, how the hell do I know what's up with administering punishment on behalf of the heavens? If not for Hong Tailong's reminder, he would have forgotten about it. He had told so many lies that even he almost believed them. Previously, when he was being chased by the demon god, he indeed wanted to seek refuge in the divine realm. However, after Hong Tailong's reminder, he remembered that the Netherworld Divine Manners passage to the divine realm led directly to the Dragon Clan's Divine Dragon Mountain. When he thought that he would have to face Coiling Dragon Ancestor, he did not dare to go even if he was beaten to death. He coughed dryly and sighed with a face full of melancholy. If it's just to seek refuge, hiding in the all-heavens boundary is the best place. However, the key is that I am not resigned to it. I want to seek revenge on the demon god. Yes. I also think that the all-heavens boundary is a good place to seek refuge. However, the key is that you provoked the wind god. If we go there, aren't we courting death? Hong Tailong sneered disdainfully. Seek revenge on the demon god? So many peak experts in the divine realm can't do anything to the demon god. Do you think you can get revenge? I think we should hide first. Sigh. The ultimate mission of administering punishment on behalf of the heavens is to eradicate the demon god. Yu Qianqiu said solemnly as he looked at Hong Tailong. Hong Tailong's mouth was agape as his expression stiffened. The muscles on his face twitched violently twice. Then he revealed a smile that was uglier than a crying face as he cried out in grief, "It can't be. Are you kidding me? Why would you accept such an impossible task? You think I want to?" Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and continued to bluff. "Do you think I can refuse? It's over, it's all over." Hong Tailong sighed as he shook his head. He had lost all his spirit in an instant. The blow he had received was too great. Wu Lixue, Pheasant, and the rainbow-feathered Lion King were speechless when they heard that Yu Qianqiu had such a great mission. It's not like there's no way to deal with the demon god. The rainbow-feathered Lion King, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said something shocking. "What is it?" The few of them looked at him in unison. The rainbow-feathered lion Wang Xiongjian walked around a few times. There was some hesitation in his eyes, as if he didn't know whether he should say it or not. Pheasant immediately lost his patience. He stood on Wu Lixue's shoulder and shouted, "Lion King, just say it." Seeing that Pheasant had spoken, the rainbow-feathered Lion King nodded his head and slowly said, "I don't know if you've heard of the great god Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow and the supreme divine bow." The few of them looked at him expectantly or nodded repeatedly, waiting for him to continue. Back then, the great god Yi and the war god Rui both died after an unprecedented battle. The supreme divine bow left behind by the great god Yi was personally sealed by the ancient phoenix god. If we can find the supreme divine bow and the heaven and earth splitting arrow, we might be able to kill the demon god. However, the 9 heaven and earth splitting arrows have already been shot to 9 other spacetimes. I'm afraid it's impossible to find them. The rainbow-feathered Lion King said apologetically to the few of them, "Without a great cultivation that can travel through spacetime, it's impossible to find the 9 heaven and earth splitting arrows. If the divine arrows can't be combined with the divine bow, they won't be able to unleash their formidable power. I'm just speaking thoughtlessly, don't take it seriously." Wu Lixue, Pheasant, and Hong Tailong's gazes all turned to Yu Qianqiu. The 3 of them knew that this guy just happened to have something that couldn't be found. Yu Qianqiu's face was indescribably pleasantly surprised. He quickly took out the divine arrow and said cheerfully, "Sorry, I just happened to have a heaven and earth splitting arrow in my hand." This time, it was the rainbow-feathered Lion King's turn to be surprised. With a flash of light, he turned into a tall and sturdy man. He reached out to grab the divine arrow in Yu Qianqiu's hand to verify its authenticity. In the end, he found that it was unimaginably heavy. He had to spend a lot of cultivation to pick it up. There was no need to verify its authenticity. He cried out in surprise, "Is this really the heaven and earth splitting arrow? How did it fall into your hands? What's real can't be fake and what's fake can't be real." Yuchencho reached out to grab the divine arrow back. His eyes lit up and he said, "Lion King. From what you said just now, the supreme godly bow was personally sealed by the ancient Phoenix god, and you're the descendant of the Phoenix Temple's guardian god. Could it be that you know the whereabouts of the heaven and earth splitting arrow? To be more precise, could it be that the supreme godly bow is sealed in the Phoenix Temple?" The others also became excited, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. The rainbow-feathered Lion King looked at the divine arrow in Yuchencho's hand and exclaimed, "I don't know where the supreme godly bow is sealed, but according to legend, the Phoenix Temple is indeed related to the place where the supreme godly bow is sealed. It's said that whoever can decipher the Phoenix Temple's secret will be able to find the supreme godly bow. However, the Phoenix Temple is protected by a powerful restriction. Ordinary people can't enter at all. Only those who have a great destiny with the Phoenix clan can enter." Speaking up to hear, his gaze looked towards Wu Lishua. Yuchencho, Hong Tailong and Pheasant also looked towards her. Wu Lishua looked at herself up and down with a blank expression. Puzzled, she said, "Why are you all looking at me? This heartless girl, the person who has a great destiny with the Phoenix clan is you." Hong Tailong's old face turned into a chrysanthemum flower as he clapped his hands and chuckled non-stop. "I knew it. How could old ancestor Coiling Dragon hand over an impossible task to me? No wonder he asked me to bring the heaven and earth splitting arrow down here. No wonder he asked you, Yuchencho, to complete the task. It turns out that this is the trump card to deal with the demon god. I say, why is everyone still in a daze? Let's go. Let's go to the Phoenix Temple." Everything was ready, only the east wind was left. The group no longer hesitated. Yuchencho's cultivation was the highest, so he immediately took out the flying shuttle and carried them away. The rainbow-feathered Lion King showed him the way. A day later, the flying shuttle stopped at the peak of a towering mountain. The mountain was surrounded by mountains and seas of clouds. The scenery was enchanting and all kinds of birds were flying around the mountain, chirping. The peak of the mountain was paved with pure white jade, and there was a white jade platform that faced the cliff. Below the platform was a jade tablet with the 3 words Phoenix Stage carved on it. Under the sunlight, it was dazzling, making people feel as if they were in a dream. The rainbow-feathered Lion King pointed at the white jade platform and said, "The Phoenix Temple is up there. Everyone please follow me." He took the lead and climbed up the jade stairs. Step by step, he walked up with a devout expression. Yuchencho and the others looked around and were speechless. They didn't see any trace of the temple. Only the pheasant stood on Wu Lishua's shoulder and excitedly said, "Sister Shui, just follow the Lion King." Wu Lishua nodded and followed the rainbow-feathered Lion King up the jade stairs. Yuchencho and Hong Tailong looked at each other, then followed behind Wu Lishua. After everyone stepped on the platform, the rainbow-feathered Lion King bowed slightly to the pheasant on Wu Lishua's shoulder. The pheasant immediately flapped its wings and flew up, making loud clanging sounds towards the empty sky. With the phoenix's cry, all the flying birds in the surroundings landed on the ground and bowed, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Wherever the pheasant's sound waves reached, transparent ripples would appear in the void, and an image gradually appeared in the sea of clouds. A grand palace wrapped in a golden transparent ball of light appeared in the sky. The entire palace was made of pure white jade, and on the surface of the ball of light, there were many golden phoenixes dancing in the air. It was so beautiful that it was hard to look at them. Suddenly, a jade staircase appeared, connecting the palace in the air and the platform under everyone's feet. The few people who came here for the first time found it hard to believe. They clearly saw many flying birds circling around the palace, but they didn't see anything that could stop them from flying. They didn't expect a palace to be hidden in the air. This was obviously not an illusion and they couldn't help but feel amazed. The rainbow-feathered Lion King continued to step on the staircase, leading the way. The few people also followed behind him. The staircase under their feet was real, and it was indeed not an illusion. When they reached the top of the staircase, they could already see the vast square of the temple. It was pure white, solemn and sacred, and there were 2 huge jade phoenixes on the left and right, looking down at everyone on the staircase. However, everyone was blocked by a golden transparent light screen, and they couldn't take another step forward. The rainbow-feathered Lion King walked to the side and made way for Wu Lishua to enter. Wu Lishua was at a loss and didn't know what to do. The pheasant on her shoulder giggled and said, "Sister Shui, Whether we can enter the temple or not depends on you. Quickly put on your phoenix cloud robe and bring us in. Wu Lishue looked back at Yu Qianqiu and smiled bitterly. Phoenix cloud robe? I don't know how to put it on. Yu Qianqiu frowned. He knew that Wu Lishue did have a phoenix cloud robe in her body, but it seemed like Wu Lishue didn't know how to use it. He walked forward and tried to touch the golden transparent light screen. He found that there was a strong resistance, but there was no danger. He immediately took a few steps back and smiled at Wu Lishue. It's okay, you can try and see if you can enter. If you really can't, then forget it. Okay. Wu Lishue nodded obediently and walked forward. She bit her lips and reached out to touch the golden light screen. The moment her finger touched the light screen, Wu Lishue's body let out a slight buzzing noise. Abruptly, his body glowed with a splendid light, then shrunk. Next, a dreamy, nebula-like, seven-colored cloak covered Wu Lishue's body. An ancient sense of power was released from Wu Lishue's body along with that pair of faintly discernible starry wings. There were no less than 100 jade pillars like this, and no one knew where they came from. The vast and spacious palace was completely empty. Apart from the jade pillars standing at the top, there was almost nothing else to be seen. On the high platform in the middle of the palace, there was a huge jade phoenix sculpture. Its wings were folded together to form a jade couch. On top of the jade couch was the chest area of the jade phoenix sculpture. There was a large metal wheel embedded in it. Round after round, it was the only metal object in the entire jade palace. It was very eye-catching. While everyone was still observing the surroundings, the pheasant was clearly attracted by the metal wheel. It flew in front of the jade couch and pondered for a long time. Suddenly it shouted, "Sister Shue'er, quickly come and take a look. What is this thing?" Wu Lishue, who was wearing a rainbow-colored nebula dress, floated over. She stood on the jade couch and stared at the metal wheel with the pheasant. The rainbow-feathered Lion King walked over with a pious expression. It stood at the bottom of the jade couch with its hands clasped behind its back. Apart from being huge, I don't see anything special about this so-called Phoenix Temple. Yu Qianqiu looked left and right. He patted Hong Tailong's shoulder and said, "Hong Tailong, you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Let's take a good look and see if we can find anything related to the divine bow." Yes. Hong Tailong nodded. He also had the same intention. If he didn't take a good look at this place, he would be letting himself down. Both of them went to the left and right sides of the main hall. They circled around every huge jade pillar and looked around, hoping to find some clues. Not long after, the clatter-clatter sound of a spring suddenly came from inside the main hall. The pheasant's cheerful laughter followed. "So this plate can be turned. Sister Shue'er, come and give it a try." Yu Qianqiu stuck his head out from behind a jade pillar. He saw Wu Lishue and the pheasant, who were standing on the jade couch, spinning the metal wheel that was pieced together. Both of them were having a great time. Suddenly, both the pheasant and Wu Lishue cried out in surprise. They flashed to the bottom of the jade couch and looked at the metal wheel that was spinning continuously. Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong didn't know what was going on. They also flashed back. They saw that the huge wheel that was made up of more than 10 metal rings on the jade couch was spinning on its own. Some were spinning clockwise, some were spinning counterclockwise. The more it spun, the faster it spun. This was clearly not normal. What they didn't know was that the golden transparent light barrier that enveloped the divine temple was rapidly shrinking. It quickly retracted into the divine temple. "Did you guys touch some kind of restriction?" Yu Qianqiu asked cautiously. The two of them attacked the collapsed roof at the same time. With a boom, a huge hole was created. The two of them passed through the hole and floated in the air. They saw that the Jade Palace had already crashed into the mountain range below and was smashed into pieces. The Divine Phoenix Temple was destroyed just like that? The two of them stayed in the air for a long time. Suddenly, Yu Qianqiu raised both of his arms and roared angrily at the sky. "Who can tell me what is going on? Shwa. How could this be?" Hong Tailong also shook his head. He flew down and rummaged through the shattered Jade Palace. In the end, he carried the huge metal wheel and flew back up. He placed it on the mountain peak with the Phoenix Stage inscription. He rubbed his chin and examined it carefully. In the end, he squatted down and started spinning the metal in circles, as if he was trying to figure out what was going on. After venting his anger in the air for a while, Yu Qianqiu powerlessly landed on the mountain peak. He sat on the ground in a daze and didn't say a word. After a long time, he suddenly jumped up and shouted, "Hong Tailong! Come, Let's go to the Netherworld Divine Palace. Open the passage to the God Realm and we'll go there. Are you kidding me? We haven't completed our mission yet. How are we going to explain this to old ancestor Coiling Dragon when we return to the God Realm? Hong Tailong rolled his eyes at him. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He had a good time fooling Hong Tailong, but now he realized that he had shot himself in the foot. He clenched his teeth and said, "We can't care so much. Let's save Shuer first." Hong Tailong stood up, walked over, patted his shoulder and consoled him, "Don't worry. The ancient phoenix god is famous for being kind. Based on the situation just now, Shuer will only benefit from going to the God Realm. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if the ancient phoenix god has some bad intentions, do you think you can save that girl Shuer from the ancient phoenix god with your current abilities? Even a resurrected wind god can scare you into fleeing, let alone the ancient phoenix god." Yu Qianqiu was silent. He knew that what Hong Tailong said was right, but he still couldn't put his mind at ease when Wu Lishue's fate was unknown. Since it has already happened, there's no point in being anxious. Come take a look at this. Hong Tailong grabbed his arm and dragged him to the side of the metal wheel. He pointed at it and said, "As long as you find the supreme divine Bao, you will have something to rely on to save Wu Lishue or to deal with the demonic god. I suspect that there might be something strange about this wheel. Otherwise, there's no way the ancient phoenix god would casually leave a treasure that even your divine arrows can't break. The clue to finding the supreme divine Bao might be on it. Kid, your brain is better than mine. Calm down and take a good look." The situation when he first entered the supporting Immortal Island was like yesterday. Now everything was the same, but the people had changed. The main culprit of all this was him. He had caused the once glorious #1 sect in the world to be annihilated in the passage of time. He strolled around the island, looking around for traces of the past. However, Hong Tailong wasn't as sentimental as him. With a boom, he forcefully destroyed the defensive formation on the island. Swish swish, he flew around, releasing his powerful divine sense into the depths of the island to check. After searching for a few times, he returned to Yu Qianqiu's side. He asked curiously, "Did you remember wrongly? If this supporting immortal island really has a divine artifact like the supreme godly Bao, it is impossible for me to not discover any abnormalities in such a small place." "There is no abnormality?" Yu Qianqiu also didn't believe it. He personally flew into the sky and released his powerful divine senses to scan the entire island. He didn't miss a single place, and indeed, he didn't discover any abnormalities. He landed back on the ground and felt that something was strange. There is nothing wrong. The pattern on the metal wheel is exactly the same as the supporting immortal medallion. Since there is nothing wrong, then this old dragon will tear down this entire supporting immortal island. I don't believe I can't find it. Hong Tailong revealed a sinister smile as he looked around. He was about to reveal his true form and search the entire island. "Don't waste your time. It is useless." Yu Qianqiu extended his hand to stop him. He frowned and shook his head. "I'm afraid things aren't so simple. If the supreme godly Bao could be found so easily, it would have been taken away by someone during the era when the ancient gods existed. It wouldn't be our turn to pick up the loot. Take out the metal wheel and let us take a closer look." "That's true." Hong Tailong opened his mouth and spat out the metal wheel. He placed it flat on the ground. It was unknown if it was due to the force or something else, but a ring on the metal wheel turned. The other metal rings didn't move. Only this ring turned. As a transmigrator, Yu Qianqiu had more knowledge than the people of this era. Just the word compass was enough to make his eyelids twitch. He stared at the metal ring that turned and examined it carefully. He didn't see anything strange. He then examined the entire wheel carefully. Ever since the metal wheel appeared, this was the first time he examined it so seriously. Not long after, on the outermost metal ring that didn't have any grooves, there were 8 arrows facing outwards that attracted his attention. An idea flashed in his mind. He quickly examined all the grooves on the wheel. He realized that other than a groove and an arrow that pointed in the same direction, the other grooves didn't have any corresponding arrows. This is so difficult. It's really difficult to see anything from this wheel. Yu Qianqiu, if I'm not wrong, these 300 grooves have to be embedded with corresponding immortal supporting medallions. That way we might be able to see something. Hong Tailong shook his head. Yu Qianqiu silently picked up the metal wheel from the ground. He changed his direction and the metal ring started to turn again. The groove that he was paying attention to was matched with an arrow and pointed in the direction it was pointed in. Hong Tailong exclaimed in surprise, "Did you notice something?" Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything. He carried the metal wheel and flew in the direction the arrow pointed in. Hong Tailong immediately followed. When the two of them flew to the forbidden area of Fuxian Island, the metal groove suddenly emitted light. Yu Qianqiu immediately stopped and lowered his head to take a look. It was the place where the consecrators of Fuxian Island lived. He immediately pointed to a house below and said solemnly, "If I'm not wrong, there should be an immortal supporting medallion in this house." Hong Tailong also saw something strange from the light emitted from the groove. He excitedly rubbed his palms and said, "Let me look for it." He scanned the house with his divine sense and his eyes lit up. He immediately rushed into the house and slapped open a rotten chair. A black medallion that seemed to be made of wood burst out. He grabbed it and looked at it. One side was carved with the words Fuxian, and the other side was carved with an image of an island. As expected, it was similar to the image on the metal wheel's groove. He flicked it with his finger and it gave off a dang sound. It looked like it was made of wood, but it didn't seem like it at the same time. It was very hard and he couldn't tell what it was made of. Hong Tailong grabbed the medallion and flashed back. He laughed loudly and said, "B****, you really know how to hide it. To actually hide it in a chair. Who would have thought that such a thing would be hidden in a thin wooden board? Inserted into the glowing groove." Yu Qianqiu pointed and said. Hong Tailong grunted in acknowledgement. When he saw the words Fuxian engraved in the groove, he immediately inserted the corresponding side of the immortal supporting medallion. It was neither too big nor too small, and the moment it was inserted, the faint light emitted from the groove immediately disappeared. At the same time, another metal ring spun with a d-d sound. Yu Qianqiu looked towards the direction indicated by an arrow. He carried the metal roulette and flew in that direction. Hong Tailong followed closely behind him. In the sky above the sea region not far away from the supporting immortal island, another groove emitted a faint light once again. This time there was no need for Yu Qianqiu to call for Hong Tailong. Hong Tailong had already dived into the sea. After a short while he flew out with a medallion in his hand. He looked at Yu Qianqiu and laughed loudly, "Old Long, I really have to hand it to you. I was wondering what your brain was made of. I couldn't understand it even after looking at it for a long time, but you actually understood it with just one look. Hurry up and teach me how to play it." Yu Qianqiu didn't hide anything from him. After explaining the profoundness behind it, Hong Tailong inserted the immortal supporting medallion into the groove. As expected, the metal ring on the roulette spun once again, indicating a direction. Let me play. Hong Tailong snatched the metal roulette into his hand and the two of them flew in the direction indicated once again. She had always done her best and had never complained. As soon as Furong and the other women saw him, they immediately crowded around him. However, from their hesitant expressions, it could be seen that they still had lingering fears about the events of that day. Yu Qianqiu could only squeeze out a smile and comfort him. "It's okay, it's all in the past now." The women felt terrible and they could tell that he was feeling terrible as well. No one mentioned the events of that day again. However, Ziyi, who was lying quietly on the stone platform, did not move at all. She looked up with lifeless eyes and no matter who came over to talk to her, she did not react at all. She had just found out who her biological parents were, but she had lost them at the same time. It was easy to imagine the blow she had suffered. An innocent and adorable woman had lost her former spirit and had become like a living dead. Yu Ji, who was not used to being exposed under the sun, had survived the calamity because she had been in a remote and dark place. At that moment she was guarding Ziyi and taking care of her. When she saw Yu Qianqiu walk over, she bowed respectfully and did not say a word. Yu Qianqiu touched Ziyi's face with both hands and called out a few times, but she remained indifferent. He immediately checked on her injuries and realized that they were fine. However, the trauma in her heart was probably not something that could be healed in a short period of time. When he saw her like this, he thought of the lively woman called Big Liar. Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. He silently turned and left. When he walked out of the cave, he let out a long sigh. I was wrong. He thought of the people who had died at his hands, whether directly or indirectly, and how sorrowful their friends and family must be. After Hong Tailong, who had found 2 immortal supporting badges in Utopia, met up with him, the two of them went to the place where Demon Monarch 3 Knight had led his Demon Path army to launch a sneak attack on Divine Illusionary Realm. Unexpectedly, they only found 35 immortal supporting badges in Divine Illusionary Realm, and the metal wheel did not react again. What's going on? There are still 71 more. Why is there no reaction again? Didn't you say that you didn't bring those people from Immortal Supporting Island out? Hong Tailong looked around and asked curiously. He could not wait to gather all the Immortal Supporting badges. He wanted to see the true appearance of the legendary unparalleled Divine Bow. He was very displeased that his clues kept getting cut off. Yu Qianzhou fell silent for a while before saying slowly, when the Demon Path army launched a sneak attack, they must have snatched quite a number of things. At the same time, they brought the immortal supporting badges out of Divine Illusionary Realm. We will know once we try it outside. The moment the two of them appeared in the immortal realm, the metal wheel indeed reacted. Hong Tailong immediately cried out excitedly, that's right, that's right. There's a reaction from the southeast. After searching the immortal realm, they found another 41 immortal supporting badges. The two of them then rushed to the netherworld realm and found another 25 pieces which they embedded into the metal wheel. The remaining 5 pieces were also gathered by the two of them in the demon realm. While they were searching in the demon realm, Yu Qianzhou also gathered all the 100 dark soldiers that had escaped. After spending more than a month, they went through the mortal realm, immortal realm, netherworld realm, demon realm, and divine illusionary realm. Finally, they gathered all 300 immortal supporting badges and embedded them into the metal wheel. The two of them were in a valley in the demon realm. They stared at the repaired metal wheel and carefully examined it again. Unfortunately, they were dizzy and their eyes were blurry. They could not find any clues. Hong Tailong caressed the immortal supporting badge's image of an island. He frowned and said, 150 sides with the words immortal supporting facing up. 150 sides with the image of an island facing up. Could it be hinting that our unparalleled divine bow is still related to that immortal supporting island? But we checked it at Immortal Supporting Island. There are no traces of the unparalleled divine bow on Immortal Supporting Island. There might be something fishy. Let's return to Immortal Supporting Island and try again. Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and the two of them disappeared from the demon realm. When the two of them reappeared on the supporting Immortal Island, Hong Tailong, who was carrying the metal wheel, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Yu Qianzhou looked over and saw that the metal wheel in Hong Tailong's hand had actually started trembling. The 300 supporting immortal tokens that were inlaid on the wheel shone with a golden light at the same time, and all the metal rings on the wheel began spinning, either counterclockwise or clockwise. What's going on? Yu Qianzhou shouted. I don't know either. The moment we arrived, there was a strange movement. It seems like it is about to fly. Its strength is getting stronger and stronger. I can't hold on to it anymore. Quickly help me catch it. If it escapes, all our efforts will be wasted. Hong Tailong used all his strength to struggle to hold on to the spinning metal wheel. Yu Qianzhou quickly looked at the surrounding immortal supporting island and shouted resolutely, Hong Tailong, let it go and see what happens. Don't regret it if it escapes. Hong Tailong rolled his eyes unhappily. It seemed like he couldn't bear to let go of the treasure in his hands. But in the end he still did as he was told. The key was that he couldn't control it anymore. It wasn't that he really wanted to let go. When he realized that there was no obstruction, he immediately slipped in and flew straight towards the huge divine bow. He shouted excitedly and hugged it, kissing it. It was as if he wanted the treasure more than his life. Chapter 1237. However, that divine bow was too big. It floated quietly in the cosmos, reaching a length of over 100 zhang. Hong Tailong's huge head could be completely ignored as he stuck to the bow. He was like an ant climbing on the bow, like an ant that had found food and was dancing with joy. Although Yu Qianzhou was also a person whose eyes were opened by the sight of treasures, he was also extremely excited. However, compared to Hong Tailong, he was much more cautious. He reached out his hand to touch the edge of the window, but it easily brushed past. The window that connected the mortal world and the cosmos seemed like an illusion, as if it didn't exist. He stuck his head in to look around and confirmed that it was the boundless cosmos on the other side, while the mortal world was on the other side. The mystical scene amazed him. After hesitating for a while, he didn't dare to rush in without knowing anything like Hong Tailong. What if the window suddenly closed? What if it was a trap? He stared at Hong Tailong and coughed in envy. He waved his hand and shouted, Hong Tailong, what are you so excited for? Hurry up and bring out the godly bow. So beautiful. Hong Tai-long, who had floated to the dreamlike bowstring, was drooling while hugging it. Startled, he immediately flashed to the bow and tried to pull it back. However, no matter how strong he was, he couldn't move the bow at all. Roar. A dragon roar sounded, and Hong Tai-long revealed his original form. He turned into a huge red dragon and circled around the bow. After wrapping his long body around the godly bow, he used all his strength to pull it back, but the godly bow still didn't budge. Hong Tai-long grew anxious. He roared a few times and exerted his strength, but it was useless no matter how many times he tried. In the end, he relaxed like a lazy snake. Yu Qianqiu, who was dancing and cheering outside the window, snapped, "Brat, what are you looking at? Come and help me. You're such a huge guy but you can't even move the bow. How dare you call yourself a dragon?" Yu Qianqiu said in disdain. Hong Tai-long returned to his human form anxiously and said, "It's easy for you to say. Why don't you try? Do you think this is a piece of scrap metal? This is Great God Yi's supreme godly bow. I don't think you can move it even with your cultivation." Bullshit. Yu Qianqiu looked around, reached out and waved his hand at the seemingly empty window and said, "If it weren't for the worry that this window would close at any time, I wouldn't be able to move a bow with my cultivation of the late-stage Great God." What a joke. Hong Tai-long was startled. He looked to his left and right as well. His expression changed drastically as he roared, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" He teleported out and touched his chest with some lingering fear. After heaving a sigh of relief, he suddenly realized something and said, "If I'm not afraid, what are you afraid of? You can come out at any time since you have the star bead." Yu Qianqiu was taken aback for a moment before he replied disapprovingly, "Who says I'm afraid?" He slowly flew in and tried to contact Utopia. When he realized that there was no problem, he was at ease and flashed behind the divine bow. He held the divine bow with both hands and used all his cultivation to push it toward the window. This time, it was Hong Tai-long's turn to cheer for Yu Qianqiu. However, to their disappointment, even with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, he was still unable to shake Yu Qianqiu in the slightest. Hong Tai-long immediately pounded his chest and stomped his feet as he howled miserably, "It's over. It's over this time. It wasn't easy for me to find this treasure but I can't get it out." Yu Qianqiu retracted his hand and flew around twice. A thought flashed in his mind as he thought of the heaven and earth splitting arrow. He chuckled and said, "That might not be the case. Why don't you see who it is?" Raising his hand, he bit his finger and smeared his blood on the supreme divine bow. The blood was absorbed into the bow at a visible speed. In that instant, Yu Qianqiu felt that he and the divine bow were connected. With a thought, he reached out a palm. The supreme divine bow shone brightly in the vast starry sky and rapidly shrunk to the size of a normal bow. Then it slowly landed in his palm. Yu Qianqiu held onto the divine bow and teleported from the starry sky to the mortal world. He floated in the sky and laughed maniacally. Hong Tai-long was filled with envy, so much so that he almost drooled. His eyes lit up as he stared at the divine bow in Xiao Chen's hand. He swallowed his saliva and said, "How could I forget that a divine item has to recognize its master? What a great treasure, what a great treasure. Yu Qianqiu, let me play with it." Before he finished speaking, the window that appeared in the void suddenly flashed with a golden light. It rapidly shrunk into a dot and disappeared into the void as if it had never been there. The two of them were dumbfounded. They looked around and scanned the surroundings. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, "Where's that metal wheel? Why did it disappear as well? Who cares where it went? In any case, the supreme divine bow has been found. There's no point in keeping it." Hong Tai-long retracted his gaze and extended his hand with envy. "Yu Qianqiu, let me play with the supreme divine bow." Yu Qianqiu didn't keep it to himself. He hung the divine bow in his hand and let Hong Tai-long take it himself. However, Hong Tai-long grabbed it with both hands. Even after using all his strength, he still couldn't move it. He immediately groaned in annoyance. "If I knew this would happen, I would have dripped my blood on it to recognize its master. Hurry up and test its power. Let me broaden my horizons." Holding the seven-colored bow in his hand, Yu Qianqiu had a solemn expression on his face. The rippling blue sea instantly became as still as stagnant water. The two of them raised their heads to look at the sky, and their expressions changed at the same time. They saw 7 pairs of dreamlike giant eyes suddenly appear in the sky. The 7 pairs of eyes were either filled with disdain, gratification, shock, greed, or envy. All of them seemed to be focused on the supreme divine bow in Yu Qianqiu's hand. Hong Tailong stared at the pair of gratified eyes and mumbled dumbfoundedly, "Old ancestor coiling dragon." Yu Qianqiu stared at the pair of disdainful and cold eyes. He was too familiar with those eyes. It wasn't the first time he saw them. They were the eyes of a demonic god. "I was wondering why you guys were so confident. So it's because you want to rely on Yi's supreme godly bow to win. It's no different from scrap metal in his hands. It's a joke to use it against me. It's perfect to give it to me to make up for the loss of the devil blade. If any of you dare to have any ideas about it, don't blame me for being impolite. Even if it's in your hands, you won't be able to unleash its full power. This supreme godly bow is mine." The demonic god's confident voice came coldly from the sky. The pair of demonic eyes moved to the sides and looked at the other 5 pairs of eyes in the sky. It seemed to be a warning. Then it quietly disappeared from the sky. Following that, another 4 pairs of eyes reluctantly retreated into the sky. The other 2 pairs of eyes smiled at each other and quietly disappeared as well. Demonic god. Yu Qianqiu clenched his teeth and tightly gripped the supreme godly bow in his hands. He really wanted to kill the enemy, but he was powerless to do so. He had nowhere to vent the anger in his heart. He turned his head and roared at Hong Tailong, "Why did 7 pairs of eyes appear at the same time? Who are the other 6? Oh. Hong Tailong came back to his senses. He shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Who else could it be? You know the demonic god, I know the coiling dragon ancestor, and the other 5 must be the ancient phoenix god, the ancient light god, the sky god, the water god, and the thunder god. In the god realm, only these 7 true gods can ignore distance and appear at any place at any time. Other than them there can't be anyone else. The ancient phoenix god is also here? Why didn't you say so earlier? I could have asked Shui or how she is." Yu Qianqiu had nowhere to vent his anger. He grabbed Hong Tailong and roared, "If you don't ask me, how would I know what you want to know? Even you are stunned, let alone me. Besides, the 7 true gods of the god realm have all revealed their Dharma idol at the same time. How would I dare to express any opinion in front of them?" Hong Tailong revealed a "you are unreasonable" expression and waved his hand. Chapter 1238. Even though they had obtained the unparalleled divine weapon, the supreme divine bow, the 2 of them were not happy when they returned to Utopia. They had heard the Fian Celestial's ruthless words. He had threatened the gods of the divine world on the spot and pointed out that the supreme divine bow belonged to him. The gods were not angry at all. Once the Fiend Celestial wanted to take the supreme divine bow, who could protect it? It was clear that he would deal with Yu Qianqiu sooner or later. However, what puzzled Yu Qianqiu was why the Fiend Celestial had not made a move yet. Without a solution, he could only pin his hopes on Bai Changchun and hope that his monstrous master would create another miracle. Yu Qianqiu took Xinyu to the celestial barrier again. After throwing Xinyu back to Utopia, he quietly walked along the edge of the transverse mountains alone. Just as he was about to approach Bai Changchun's cultivation place, he saw a huge tomb floating in the air from afar, reflecting a dark red light under the moonlight. The tomb of the wind god. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He did not expect the wind god to be waiting here. Clearly he was not waiting for him as a prophet. Could it be that he was waiting for Bai Changchun to come out and seek revenge for Tianfeng and Earthwind? Yu Qianqiu wanted to find a place to hide and watch, but who knew that the giant tomb floating in the air would turn around and face him? The tombstone was facing him and a powerful aura locked onto him. Damn. I've been discovered. Yu Qianqiu's heart trembled. Without another word he flashed back to Utopia. It was better to escape first. After returning to Utopia, Yu Qianqiu suddenly realized that all the trouble he had stirred up in the 3 realms over the years was simply a joke. A single sentence from the demonic god had practically determined his fate of waiting to be slaughtered. He did not have the slightest ability to resist, and there was no place for him in this vast world. Endless frustration surged in his heart. Unknowingly he had arrived on an island overseas, where Bai Suzhen was cultivating. Every time he suffered a setback, he would always think of Bai Suzhen for comfort. The entire island was shrouded in a dense demonic aura. As soon as Yu Qianqiu stepped on the island, the dense demonic aura immediately retracted into a valley. Yu Qianqiu flew in the direction where the demonic aura retracted. In the meadow that was filled with flowers, Bai Suzhen sat cross-legged with her eyes closed. Seemingly sensing his arrival, Bai Suzhen slowly opened her eyes and stood up. Yu Qianqiu landed in front of her and they looked at each other in silence. Yu Qianqiu suddenly shivered inexplicably in his heart. Cold. At this moment he only felt cold, thoroughly cold, cold to the bones, cold to the heart. Bai Suzhen stared at him indifferently. Her eyes were devoid of any emotion and her dainty features were devoid of any expression. She looked at him as if he was a stranger on the street. You've broken through to the minor god realm in such a short time. Congratulations. Yu Qianqiu squeezed a smile on his face, trying to make his tone as intimate as possible, but even he could feel the distance in his words. Facing Bai Suzhen, he suddenly didn't know what to say. Ever since they met, the two of them had never been so far apart. Bai Suzhen didn't say anything. She looked at him calmly and slowly untied her gown with both hands. Under Yu Qianqiu's dumbfounded expression, Bai Suzhen took off her clothes and stood naked in front of him. She had a face that could topple nations. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. Her waist was enchanting. She had 2 red bumps on her full, snow-white breasts. Her long, slender, jade-like legs were luxuriant. One side of her perky buttocks made Yu Qianqiu swallow hard. He had yet to return to his senses and didn't know why she was acting like this all of a sudden. Bai Suzhen quickly gave him the answer. She walked over with her slender legs and personally took off all his clothes. Then she hugged him tightly. The two of them hugged each other naked. The passion in Yu Qianqiu's heart was quickly ignited. The two of them fell onto the beautiful meadow, rubbing against each other and rolling around. Yu Qianqiu had finally found a way to vent all the pent-up grievances in his heart. They rammed into each other to their heart's content, venting crazily. Round after round of passionate entanglement. It was as if they wanted to toss and turn until the seas ran dry and the rocks crumbled. The beautiful meadow was ravaged into a sorry state. After a long time, the two of them fell to the ground in each other's arms, exhausted. It took a while for their breathing to calm down. Yu Qianqiu, who was still immersed in the aftertaste, was suddenly pushed to the side. Bai Suzhen picked up her clothes and slowly put them on. With her back facing him, she walked to a place not far away and lightly said, "Is there anything else? Don't disturb me if there's nothing else. I still need to cultivate. You can come and look for me when you need me." Yu Qianqiu sat up abruptly and looked at her. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence with a smile on his face. It was unknown if he was saying it for her or to comfort himself. "It seems like the side effects of the blue sea essence on your body have not subsided. I don't blame you. I'll come and look for you when you recover." He picked up his clothes and did not wear them. Instead, he carried them in his hands and ran away naked with a desolate expression. Outside the cave abode that the people from Utopia had temporarily opened up, Hong Tailong had written the word, demonic god, on the ground. As its ferocious dragon head approached, Yu Qianqiu leaned back and maintained an arm's-length distance from the dragon head. He smiled awkwardly and said, "I have a common face, so it's common for misunderstandings to occur. Brother Dragon, you must have mistaken me for someone else." "I can't be wrong. It's you, big brother you. I can't be wrong." The small black dragon wagged its tail excitedly. It was just short of sticking out its tongue to lick the saliva on his face. However, with a flash of black light, a little fellow with his hair tied up in a bun appeared. He hugged his arm and said happily, "Big brother you, I'm little Yuan. You even hit me before. Have you forgotten?" Chapter 1239. Oh, little Yuan. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Looking at the lively and cheerful little guy in front of him, he immediately remembered that it was little Yuan of the Li Palace's water tribe who had successfully leaped through the Dragon Gate in the underworld river. Ever since this little guy had been taken away by the Pegasus, he had not seen him again. He did not expect that he had snuck into the dragon race and was doing quite well. His face was full of smiles, and just as he was about to rub little Yuan's head in a friendly manner, Hong Tailong stretched his head over and asked curiously, "Yu Qianqiu, what? You've interacted with the dragon race before you met me? How come I've never heard you mention it before? When did you beat him?" "I beat him?" Yu Qianqiu's hand, which was just about to stretch out, froze. His gaze shifted from little Yuan to the 100 pairs of eyes staring at him in the sky. The muscles on his face twitched as he cursed in his heart. Of all the things this little bastard could have said, he just had to say that I beat him. Wasn't he just looking for trouble for Laozi? Damn it. Could it be that he now has a backer and wants to seek revenge on Laozi? This little brother must have mistaken me for someone else. Other than Hong Tailong, I don't think I know any other dragon race. Yu Qianqiu immediately denied it. His hand, which had been about to rub little Yuan's head, changed to pushing away little Yuan's arm. Unexpectedly, little Yuan hugged him even tighter and shook his head repeatedly. Big brother, you think carefully. I am little Yuan from the underworld river. It was you who helped me succeed in leaping through the dragon gate. Could it be that you've forgotten? Yu Qinshu felt very awkward. From time to time, he would sneak a glance at the expressions of the dragons, hesitating on whether to admit it or not. Underworld river leaping through the dragon gate? Hong Tailong raised his eyebrows. He could tell something from Yu Qinshu's expression. Having interacted with Yu Qinshu for so long, he knew that this guy was a cunning businessman and what he was worried about. He immediately chuckled and said, "So be it. It's just beating him up. Brat, you've done countless bad things, yet you still care about such a small matter. Look, he doesn't even care. Why are you still pretending to be confused?" Being exposed, Yu Qinshu was so angry that his teeth itched. However, a look of sudden realization appeared on his face. He pulled Xiao Yuan with great surprise and said, "Xiao Yuan, it's you? Little Yuan, is that really you? Is that really you? Are you really the little Yuan that I helped to leap through the dragon gate?" The last sentence was especially emphasized, as if he was telling all the dragons present that it was thanks to his help that this fellow was able to sneak into the dragon clan. Hong Tailong elbowed him and shook his head. "Hey. You've done it, you've done it. It's not a big deal, is it worth it? My dragon clan isn't as petty as you think." He was still winking at her. Sometimes, getting beaten up was a small matter, but losing face was a big deal. Yu Qinshu was enraged, truly enraged. It was as though he had been greatly wronged. He straightened his neck, his face flushed red with rage, and he said, "Hong Tailong, what do you mean by this? I just didn't think of it for a moment. Stop gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. All right, I'm a villain and you're a gentleman. Are you satisfied now?" Hong Tailong snorted disdainfully as though saying, "I believe you, but do you believe yourself?" Such a ruminating expression made Yu Qinshu even more furious. However, since the other party had already admitted his mistake, he was instantly at a loss for words. Even though the two of them were undermining each other, the messy group of dragons in the sky could tell that this person had a close relationship with Hong Tailong. Just as some dragons were clamoring for Hong Tailong to introduce Yu Qinshu, a white cloud slowly floated over from the clouds of the myriad mountain summit. The dragons immediately fell silent and moved to the side. Xiao Yuan also stuck out his tongue and moved to the side. On the white cloud stood a majestic and mighty man. His eyes were bright and piercing, and he looked at Hong Tailong and Yu Qinshu, who were on the plateau below, with a dignified expression. Hong Tailong greets Elder Long Jiang. Hong Tailong respectfully saluted. Yu Qinshu had always believed in the principle of being polite to others. In addition, he couldn't see through the other party's cultivation, so he naturally didn't care who he was and just followed Hong Tailong's actions and bowed. As expected, Hong Tailong has returned. Elder Long Jiang nodded slightly, but his gaze swept back and forth between Yu Qinshu's body. After a while, he said in a loud and clear voice, "The old ancestor knows that the two of you have arrived. He has issued a decree for the two of you to head to the Star Palace to pay your respects." After saying that, he turned around and slowly flew towards the main peak that towered into the clouds. "It's over." Yu Qinshu was instantly dumbfounded. He had originally wanted to find a chance to slip away and inquire about Wu Lishue's whereabouts. He didn't expect that the coiling dragon old ancestor would find out the moment he arrived and even summon him. He was now starting to worry about the matter of him falsely accepting the punishment mission on behalf of the heaven. "Yes." Hong Tailong bowed again with a solemn expression. He pulled the dumbfounded Yu Qinshu and indicated for him to follow. Yu Qinshu clenched his teeth and steeled his heart. In any case, he wouldn't be afraid of an itch once he had enough lice. If he really couldn't do it, he would just flee. A silver ball stealthily slid down his trousers and into his feet. Together with Hong Tailong, they slowly followed behind that elder Long Jiang. After arriving at the main peak of the Divine Dragon Mountain range, they surveyed the surrounding mountains, feeling as though they were looking down on all the other mountains. There was a dazzling golden platform at the top of the mountain. The flight of stairs led diagonally into the void, and at the end of the flight of stairs was a mass of revolving profound light. When the three of them arrived at the end of the flight of stairs, Elder Long Jiang kept the cloud beneath his feet and took the lead to step into the profound light, disappearing. The two extremely nervous fellows looked at each other. Hong Tailong even looked at Yu Qinshu with a pleading expression and bowed repeatedly. Yu Qinshu rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, it's not that I'm not loyal, but I might not even be able to protect myself. How would I have the ability to put in a good word for you? Brother, good luck to you." He threw caution to the wind and also stepped into the profound light. Hong Tailong weakly followed behind him. The moment they entered the profound door, their eyes suddenly turned into another world. They were already in a vast golden plaza. The entire golden plaza floated quietly in the starry sky. There were no buildings or buildings. The distant starry sky was dotted with stars, vast and boundless, mysterious and unfathomable, just like the vault of heaven. In the middle of the plaza, there was a gigantic octagonal golden platform. A gigantic golden dragon coiled in the void above it. Yu Qianqiu had to raise his head high in order to see the majestic head of the gigantic dragon staring at him. Its eyes were filled with depth and vicissitudes of life. Below the octagonal golden platform, there were 4 golden pillars on each side. 7 gigantic dragons of different colors coiled around the pillars, also looking at Yu Qianqiu. However, their bodies were almost twice the size of the gigantic dragon coiled in the void. The powerful aura of the dragon race caused the entire golden plaza to feel as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. When Elder Long Jiang saw the two of them entering, he immediately turned into a gigantic red dragon and flew toward the empty golden pillar on the left. He coiled around it, not moving an inch like the other divine dragons. Hong Tailong pays his respects to the old ancestor and the 8 elders. Hong Tailong quickly walked up, knelt down and lowered his head. Wasn't this greeting a little too much? Yu Qianqiu's gaze paused on Hong Tailong, who was lying on the ground, and the corners of his lips twitched. He felt that if it was a blessing, it would not be a calamity. If it was a calamity, he would not be able to avoid it. He first contacted Utopia, and after confirming that there were no problems, he also strode forward, bowed and said, "Yu Qianqiu pays his respects to the coiled dragon god and the 8 elders. Sai, it's here. This day has finally arrived." A deep and aged voice rang out from the octagonal golden platform, reverberating in the surroundings. A pair of gigantic dragon eyes stared at the unmoving Hong Tailong from Yu Qianqiu's body, and asked, "Hong Tailong, do you admit to your crime?" Hong Tailong raised his head from his kneeling position. He first looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was standing to the side like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. Just as he was about to say a few words in defense, the 8 golden pillars immediately responded with suppressed anger. Hong Tailong shuddered and obediently prostrated himself, saying, "Hong Tailong admits to his crime. You've wasted 100,000 years. I punish you to go into seclusion in the Long Yao blessed land, for 100,000 years. Do you admit to your punishment?" The coiled dragon god's voice boomed out once again. Hong Tailong seemed to have heard something unbelievable. He slowly raised his head and was stunned, thinking that he had heard wrongly. Yu Qianqiu originally wanted to let Hong Tailong pray for himself. However, when he heard that he had to go into seclusion for 100,000 years in some godforsaken place, coupled with Hong Tailong's stupefied look, he naturally treated it as a very severe punishment. Thinking about how they were friends, if he didn't even dare to say a word to help his friend at a critical moment, he would be too much of a beast. He immediately coughed and cupped his hands, saying, "Coiled dragon god, Hong Tailong didn't do anything wrong. Isn't this punishment too severe?" "It's not severe, it's not severe. I couldn't ask for more." Hong Tailong hurriedly grabbed onto Yu Qianqiu's trousers and shook his head repeatedly. The members of the Dragon Clan all knew that Long Yao blessed land wasn't a place that just anyone could enter. Only the elites among the elites of the Dragon Clan, or those who had made great contributions to the Dragon Clan, would have the chance to enter and cultivate, let alone cultivate for 100,000 years. On the surface, it looked like Hong Tailong was being punished to go into seclusion, but in reality, a great fortune had landed on Hong Tailong. It was practically a reward. However, how could an outsider like Yu Qianqiu know about this? "Hong Tailong, water must have entered your brain. I'm punishing you to go into seclusion for 100,000 years and you couldn't ask for more? I'll say it in advance. It's not that I don't want to help you, but you asked for it. When the time comes, don't blame me for not being loyal." Yu Qianqiu transmitted a message. Hong Tailong immediately replied, "I appreciate your good intentions, but you don't know that Long Yao blessed land is a place that every disciple of the Dragon Clan dreams of entering. Not to mention that it's a rare place for cultivation. There are countless delicious food and fun things to do there. I'll be staying there for 100,000 years. Even in my dreams, I never thought that there would be such a good thing. Don't spoil my plans or I'll hate you for the rest of my life." What kind of joke is this? Are you messing with me? There's such a good thing? Is this still considered a punishment? Who knows what's going on? Maybe the old ancestor is too old and made a slip of the tongue. However, with his status, it's not good for him to go back on his words. If you remind him, wouldn't that be giving him a chance to change his words? Could it be that coiled dragon god had really gone senile? It couldn't be. Yu Qianqiu looked suspiciously at the giant golden dragon lying in the void. Chapter 1240. Seeing Hong Tailong admit his mistake and accept his punishment, great god coiling dragon said, "Go!" Below the giant golden coiling dragon, a strange profound light appeared on the octagonal golden dais. Clearly, it was another exit that led to another place. Hong Tailong crawled up gratefully, respectfully and devoutly walking towards the octagonal golden dais. There was an uncontrollable joy on his face. Walking up the golden dais, just as he was about to step into the profound light, Hong Tailong seemed to have thought of something. He stopped and turned around to look at Yu Qianqiu, who was standing there in a daze. When she thought about how she could hide in the Long Yao blessed land to enjoy her blessings without any disaster, but this brat had to bear the blow of the demon god alone, she felt a little sorry for him. She bowed slightly with an apologetic look in her eyes, then turned around resolutely and disappeared in the profound light. The profound light on the golden dais disappeared. Yu Qianqiu was still in a dream. The giant golden dragon floating in the air had already shone with a golden light and condensed into a bronze-skinned muscular man. He stood on the octagonal golden dais with his bare upper body and feet. He stared at Yu Qianqiu and asked indifferently, "Yu Qianqiu, what is your purpose in coming to my divine dragon mountain?" Yu Qianqiu was slightly shocked. He didn't expect the famous great god coiling dragon to look like this. He came back to his senses and replied respectfully, "Junior has a beloved girlfriend who was brought to the divine realm by the phoenix god from the divine void realm's divine phoenix temple. Because I was worried about her safety, I followed Hong Tailong to the divine realm. I wanted to borrow the divine dragon mountain to look for the phoenix god and find out about my girlfriend's situation." He was worried that the other party would ask him about the matter of falsely receiving the punishment on behalf of the heaven. Who would have thought that the other party didn't mention it at all? He guessed that the other party might not know about it yet. "I see." Great god coiling dragon was like a farmer's uncle. Although he looked down from above, he smiled amiably and asked, "The phoenix god's Yuchen palace is not a place that anyone can enter. Are you confident that you can meet her?" "No." Yu Qianqiu admitted it honestly, then took out the supreme divine bow and offered it with both hands. "This is the supreme divine bow this junior had painstakingly obtained. If the coiling dragon great god is willing to recommend me, this junior is willing to offer this divine bow to senior." From the moment he stepped into the Star Palace and laid his eyes on coiling dragon, he had already been prepared to use the supreme divine bow to avert any calamities. When the time came, he would spread the news that he had gifted the supreme divine bow to coiling dragon and see if he could divert the demon god's attention. At the very least, he would be able to divert his attention away from him. Hopefully, he would be able to buy some time for his monstrous master to come out of seclusion. Perhaps he would be able to convince coiling dragon to lend him a hand in a time of crisis. This guy was now at the end of his life as a great god, but once he was forced into a corner, he once again brought out his old habit of bribery. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. As long as he could save his life, he was willing to do anything even more despicable. This was the survival principle of a nobody. When the 8-colored divine dragons on the 8 golden pillars saw him take out the supreme divine bow, their eyes all widened in shock. Clearly they all knew of the supreme divine bow's prestige. They all turned to look at coiling dragon great god, wondering if he would accept it. Coiling dragon great god looked at Yu Qianqiu with an enigmatic smile, and said, "I appreciate your good intentions, but since you're going to see the phoenix great god, why don't you keep the divine bow and give it to her? However, I'm also going to the Yuchen Palace. Seeing as you're a friend of my dragon race, I can bring you along." Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He didn't think that he would be unable to give away such a treasure. His plan had failed, and he could only sheath the divine bow in embarrassment. However, when he heard that coiling dragon great god was willing to take him to see the phoenix great god, he still thanked him with great gratitude and said, "This junior will repay senior's great kindness in the future." Coiling dragon great god chuckled and said, "Then come with me." As he said that, he casually drew a line beside him and a void crack appeared beside him. He turned around and disappeared into it. Yu Qianshou was shocked by the coiling dragon great god's method of tearing space apart. Looking at the dark and mysterious void crack, he didn't know whether he should go in or not. After all, he had never tried this thing before. However, coiling dragon great god's questioning voice came from the void crack. Are you afraid that I'll harm you? No, if coiling dragon great god wanted to harm me, you wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Yu Qianshou flattered him repeatedly, and then braced himself and flashed into the void crack. The moment he entered, he saw thunder and lightning crisscrossing everywhere in the endless darkness. An inexplicable turbulence tugged at him, and he didn't know where it was going to take him. Even with his late-stage great god cultivation, he couldn't resist it all, and he immediately broke out in cold sweat. Just as he was about to contact Utopia and leave, a ball of light suddenly shot over and wrapped him within, immediately cutting off the pulling of the spatial turbulence. Coiling dragon great god's tall figure also appeared in front of him, and he said with a faint smile, "There's no need to panic." The ball of light that wrapped around Yu Qianshou immediately followed coiling dragon great god and flew rapidly. After a while, there was light in front of him, and before Yu Qianshou could see clearly what was going on, he found himself in a vast jade square. The surroundings and the starry sky above him were brilliant, and the scene was just like the coiling dragon star palace from before. The only difference was that one was a gold palace and the other was a jade palace. Coiling dragon is here. A heavenly female voice rang out, and Yu Qianshou, who felt like he was in a dream, looked over. He saw a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure, dragging an indescribably gorgeous dress as she slowly walked over in a noble and serene manner. It would not be an exaggeration to say that her beauty was earth-shattering. Even though Yu Qianshou had seen many things, he had never seen such a beautiful woman before. In particular, her temperament was as dazzling as the sun, moon, and stars, making it impossible for anyone to have any thoughts of blasphemy against her. It was as if she was a supreme goddess in everyone's heart. Coiling dragon great god nodded and said with a smile, "As arbitrators, we naturally can't be late." He then looked around and said, "I believe the others won't miss it today either. They've been waiting for this moment for countless years, so they naturally won't miss it." As the noble and beautiful woman spoke, her eyes fell on Yu Qianshou, and she nodded with a faint smile as a greeting. She didn't ask who Yu Qianshou was or why he was here. Yu Qianshou woke up from his daze and naturally guessed who the other party was. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior Yu Qianshou pays respect to Phoenix Great God." A playful smile appeared on Coiling Dragon Great God's face as he explained, "He specially came to find you and he has a gift for you." "A gift for me?" Phoenix Great God looked at Yu Qianshou in surprise. Even though she was well-versed in worldly affairs, she couldn't figure out what Yu Qianshou wanted to give her. Coiling Dragon Great God winked at Yu Qianshou and said, "Don't you have something to ask Phoenix Great God?" Yes. Yu Qianshou repeatedly responded, took out the Supreme Divine Bow, and presented it to Phoenix Great God with both hands. Phoenix Great God took the Supreme Divine Bow suspiciously, frowned and said, "Do you want to give me the Supreme Divine Bow?" She was a little unhappy in her heart. Although she hadn't been in contact with Yu Qianshou, she also paid attention to him in secret. She knew that there were many women around Yu Qianshou, and coupled with Coiling Dragon Great God's ambiguous attitude, she couldn't help but think that Yu Qianshou's unwarranted attentiveness was because he had lustful intentions towards her. "Yes, it's for Senior." Yu Qianshou nervously rubbed his hands and said with a flattering smile, "Junior accidentally entered the Phoenix Temple in the Divine Illusionary Realm, and my beloved girlfriend was involved in the restriction left by Senior. I hope Senior can be magnanimous and let my girlfriend go." Phoenix Great God was a little dumbfounded. It seemed that this guy didn't fancy her beauty, but wanted to bribe her. On the side, Coiling Dragon Great God was already somewhat overjoyed. He seemed to be secretly laughing, and his smile was somewhat similar to Hong Tailong's. They were both from the dragon race. "Since you have obtained the Supreme Divine Bow, don't you know that it was originally sealed by me? If I wanted it, would I need you to give it to me?" Phoenix Great God didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pushed the divine bow back into Yu Qianshou's arms, giving it back to him. "That's right. How could I forget this?" Yu Qianshou was stunned for a moment. The other party obviously didn't like it, so he could only put away the divine bow and asked weakly, "How is Junior's girlfriend now?" There are some things he still doesn't know. Coiling Dragon Great God chimed in with a smile. He came to the immortal realm to save his girlfriend. He is worried that she will suffer some bad treatment in your hands. The Phoenix Great God was at a loss for words when he heard that. He looked at Yu Qianzhou's expectant eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry again. Wu Lixue and my phoenix race are fated, and she has already inherited my phoenix cloud robe. In the future, when the heavens descend, there will definitely be a place for her. She will become the phoenix goddess and serve me by my side sooner or later. Why would I harm her? You are thinking too much. Or wants to become a god? This thought flashed in Yu Qianzhou's mind, and he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Then his expression changed greatly and he said, "No way. She is my woman, how can she serve you by your side?" As if he also felt that his words were inappropriate, he quickly corrected himself, "I don't think Shui herself is willing to become a god." Yu Qianzhou, don't be greedy. You already have enough women by your side. Don't tell me you don't want to let my phoenix goddess go? I advise you to give up on this idea. The phoenix great god shook her head indifferently and refused, but the way she looked at Yu Qianzhou was a little strange. She realized that this guy was really bold. Most people would tremble in fear when they saw her, but not only was this guy not afraid for a woman, he even dared to bargain with her. Yu Qianzhou still wanted to argue, but he suddenly heard a thunderclap in the starry sky. He turned to look, only to see a crack in the void being torn open, and in a flash of lightning, a strong man carrying a sledgehammer walked out of the lightning. The sledgehammer in his hand was surrounded by lightning as he strode over. Then, another crack in the void was torn open, and a white-robed man shrouded in white light walked out of it. Before Yu Qianzhou could even come to his senses, another crack in the void appeared on the other side, and a yellow-robed man walked out with his hands clasped behind his back with an arrogant expression on his face. The last person to appear was a woman as beautiful as the goddess of Luo, and her beauty was not much inferior to that of the phoenix great god. Her dress was wrapped around her arm, and she floated over with a smile on her face as she stepped on the white waves. Chapter 1241. The one holding the lightning hammer was the god of thunder, the one shrouded in white light was the god of light, the arrogant yellow-robed man was the god of heaven, and the one treading on the waves was the water god. The four ancient gods appeared together, along with the phoenix and coiling dragon. Such a scene was rare even in the god realm. The four arrived unhurriedly and nodded at the phoenix and coiling dragon. "It's been a long time since my Yuchen palace has been so lively," Ancient God Phoenix said with a smile. Ancient God Light said with a gloomy expression, "Back then the demon god wreaked havoc in the god realm. If the two of you had agreed to work with us, the ancient gods of darkness and life wouldn't have fallen, and we wouldn't have allowed the demon god to become a great threat. I'm sure the meeting of our old friends in Yuchen Palace will be even more lively." Ancient God Coiling Dragon looked at him and said with a faint smile, "Why did the demon god wreak havoc? You all know the reason better than we do. You all pocketed the demon god's divine essence that descended from the heavens and distributed it to your own people to create gods. Otherwise, the demon god would have been trapped by the divine essence that descended from the heavens to locate him. His cultivation would have been fixed within the divine essence for the rest of his life, and he wouldn't have been able to beat the 6 of you until 2 of you died and 4 were seriously injured. Do you want me and the phoenix to drink the bitter wine that you brewed?" When Yu Qianzhou saw the 4 appear, he vaguely guessed their origins. Now that he heard Ancient God Coiling Dragon's words, he was even more shocked. He didn't expect the divine essence to have the miraculous effect of fixing one's cultivation. In other words, the reason the demon god could become the demon god that shook the universe today was thanks to their selfishness. "Coiling Dragon, you can't say that." The god of heaven standing with his hands clasped behind his back said coldly, "Back then, regardless of whether we were right or wrong, we all obeyed the orders of Tao. Did we ever disobey the decrees of Tao, when you 2 dragon and phoenix envoys passed down the decrees of Tao? And when we were in trouble, you 2 did nothing to save us. Isn't that a little unreasonable? It's not that you never disobeyed, but with the example of the war god and the wind god, you didn't dare to disobey." The coiling dragon great god casually threw out these words, which immediately caused the expressions of the 4 ancient gods to change greatly. These words were a little harsh, it was simply a blatant tearing of the veil. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little tense, the ancient phoenix god smiled and tried to diffuse the tension. "Alright, what's there to argue about in the past? Ask yourselves honestly. If it weren't for Tao appearing at the last moment and setting up that bet, restraining the demon gods for so many years, I believe that all of you wouldn't have the opportunity to stand here and watch the show today." When Yu Qianzhou heard this, he looked around suspiciously. He secretly pondered over Phoenix's words. Wait here to watch the show? What kind of excitement was there to see? Thunder God snorted in dissatisfaction and snapped, Dao only knows how to play tricks all the time. We've never seen him show his true ability. He always gets someone else to do it for him. If he really has the ability, he should have subdued the demon god back then. Why did he have to make such an unnecessary bet? I don't think he's a match for the demon god. That's right, he's the one who made the bet. Where is he now? After playing tricks for so many years, it's time for him to come out and show us his true face. This time it will be as you wish, the coiling dragon god replied indifferently, giving a definite answer. The scene suddenly quietened down. The four ancient gods of light looked at each other with a faint anticipation in their eyes. It was as if they were asking each other if they could really see the true face of Dao this time. Bet. What bet? Yu Qianqiu was still thinking about the bet when he suddenly heard that Dao would appear. His eyes flickered and he also became expectant. He wanted to see what kind of person this legendary Dao was. As the stars moved and everyone was speechless, the water god broke the silence. Her beautiful eyes kept looking at Yu Qianqiu. She found that Yu Qianqiu was also peeking at her from time to time, as if he was drooling over her beauty. But she knew that was not the case. She could not help but giggle. Little brother, are you thinking about me? Why, do you want to devour me as well to strengthen your 5 elements grand technique? I advise you to give up on this idea, or else I will not be polite. It sounded like a scolding joke, but in fact it was a warning. However, Yu Qianqiu did have the improper thought of devouring her, and he was really thinking of a way. Who knew that the sound of water would expose his crooked idea? He quickly waved his hand and said, No, it's just that Senior is so beautiful that I couldn't help but look a few more times. Beautiful. The water god was amused by him and giggled. She knew that she was beautiful, but because of her identity and status, no one had dared to praise her like this for many years. She spread her sleeves and looked at the ancient phoenix god with her bright eyes. She said coquettishly, People say that Sister Phoenix is more beautiful than me. Why don't you peek at her? That. Yu Qianqiu was embarrassed. He could not say that he had already peeked at the ancient phoenix god, right? It was not good to not answer a strong person's question, so he could only reply weakly, To each their own. The coiling dragon god chuckled, but the ancient phoenix god rolled her eyes as if saying, When did I, a dignified ancient god, become a carrot? Glib tongue. The water god scolded, but she laughed so hard that she was convulsing. After all, which woman did not like others to praise her beauty, and the goddess was no exception. The others, on the other hand, had a lot on their minds. Obviously they were not in a good mood. The ancient god looked at Yu Qianqiu and finally could not help but frown and ask, Even if he has the supreme divine bow of, isn't his cultivation a little too low? How can he be a match for the demon god? Star Pearl, 5 elements grand technique, heaven and earth splitting arrow, supreme divine bow. The ancient god of light also frowned and said, But his cultivation is too low. He is not even qualified to fight with the demon god. Letting him complete that bet is simply child's play. Does Dao have any other tricks up his sleeve? I will fight with the demon god. I will complete the bet. Yu Qianqiu looked at the others and realized that they were all staring at him. He hurriedly waved his hand and explained, Seniors, you have misunderstood. I am here to find someone. That bet is your business, it has nothing to do with me. You found someone in the Yuchen Palace? What a joke. The god of thunder snorted, implying that he was treating them as idiots. Suddenly, a crack in space was torn open, and a majestic murderous intent filled the air. The few of them were all shocked and looked back at the same time. A tall black figure walked out of the crack step by step, attracting everyone's attention. The ancient god of light and the other 3 instantly became nervous, and the smile on the water god's face turned serious. The newcomer was shrouded in demonic aura, and his long messy hair fluttered in the wind. There was a long and thin diamond-shaped blood mark between his eyebrows, and under his thick brows, his cold and emotionless eyes shone with a cold brilliance like diamonds. His cheeks were deep and sharp, and under his steel-like nose bridge, his tightly shut lips were angular, full and mean and as red as rubies. The crack in space disappeared behind him, and his arms were wrapped tightly around the black waistcoat that covered his body. He quietly floated in the air, staring coldly at the people below, making them shudder. He was extremely arrogant. The black was the demon and the red was his heart, but he was as lonely as snow. The demon god. These 2 words almost jumped out of Yu Qianqiu's throat. Yu Qianqiu's pupils shrank. Although he had never seen the demon god's true body before, he had seen the demon god's clone that was attached to Demon King 3 Knights. It was indeed wearing a black waistcoat. Coupled with the reactions of everyone present, it would be strange if he could not guess who the newcomer was. Intimidating everyone present. Only Great God Coiling Dragon and Great God Phoenix could reveal a trace of pity when they exchanged glances. The others did not even gasp loudly. "Knight, you've come." Great God Coiling Dragon laughed. "I've waited for so many years to fulfill this bet. How could I not come?" The demon god's voice was like a cold wind blowing out from a crack in an ancient iceberg. The demonic aura around his body was almost tangible. His gaze then landed on the 4 ancient gods and he said indifferently, "If I lose today, you can kill me as you please. If I win, I will take back everything you owe me with interest. No one will be able to save you." The expressions of the 4 ancient gods froze, but none of them dared to retort. Yuchencho thought to himself, "Holy crap. Are we going to have a decisive battle today? Is it a 1-on-1 or 6 against 1? It would be best if we all go up together and torture the demon god to death." Even in his dreams he had never thought about this matter. Instead he was just watching the show. Ancient God Phoenix shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Knight, as long as you agree to obey Dao's decree, it's not too late for you to give up now." The demon god interrupted her on the spot. "There's no need. I never meant obey, or surrender. Otherwise I wouldn't be the demon god knight of today." Then his gaze pressed toward Yuchencho like a sharp blade. "You've got guts to go against me. You don't even know that you've been used by others. But ignorance isn't a reason for me to let you go. It's time to settle the score between us. If I want to kill you, even the star bead can't save you." Yuchencho was filled with hatred. Unfortunately, he was not as strong as the demon god, so he couldn't speak up. He looked at the people around him and cursed. "Bullsh *T ancient gods. You've been bullied to this extent, but you don't even dare to fart." The demon god's cold eyes swept across the starry sky again. He shouted in a cadence, "Dao, I've come to fulfill our bet. When are you going to show up?" Great God Coiling Dragon and Great God Phoenix looked at each other and answered in unison, "Dao has already entrusted us to supervise the execution of the bet." The demon god suddenly turned around and stared coldly at Yuchencho. "In other words, we can start now? But don't you think that by letting him fight with me, Dao has already admitted defeat? Me and you?" Yuchencho pointed at himself with a stunned expression. Looking at the reactions of the people around him, the ancient god of light and the other 3 couldn't help but sigh slightly. They looked at him with pity in their eyes, undoubtedly telling him that what the demon god said was true. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.